What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. I am Ken, and today, guys, for World's Biggest Collectors, episode 47, I am joined by Celeste de la Cabra, a YouTuber that has a vast knowledge of all things movies and physical media. Like, the knowledge that Celeste has is just unparalleled. We had a great conversation about movies, their collection. They're a big Vinegar Syndrome and Criterion enthusiast, so we got into some great stuff about that. And then we just kind of pontificated about the future of physical media. It was a great conversation. I have to apologize, though, before we get into it. My audio was not the best. I forgot to plug in my microphone, so that was completely my fault. So I do apologize for the lower audio quality, at least on my part. Celeste's audio sounded great. So enjoy this week's episode of World's Biggest Collectors. It's a good one, episode 47, and be sure to subscribe to Celeste. I've got their Instagram, their YouTube, and all their social media accounts down below in the description. Enjoy today's episode. Let's go. All right, welcome to World's Biggest Collectors, episode 47. I am joined by Celeste. I don't want to say this name wrong. De la Cabra. Was that correct? Was that close? I have watched a few of your videos, so I've heard you pronounce it. So I felt somewhat comfortable pronouncing. But I'm happy to have you here today. You are not only a huge film fan, but you're also a huge collector. So I feel like you fit right in here on World's Biggest Collectors, episode 47. And we're going to talk about some movies. We're going to talk about physical media. We're going to talk about your history with collecting physical media. But before we talk about all that, do you want to tell the people where they can find you and subscribe and follow and all that good stuff? Just tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. First, I want to thank you for having me here. I know that my channel is still relatively pretty small, and I've been a big fan of yours for quite some time now. I probably watch your videos almost every day. I don't know. You're so personable and entertaining. Like, I was just thinking,
people always tell me that, and I'm like, wow, I don't get it.
As we were starting to talk, I was like, I don't actually think we've actually had a face-to-face conversation yet, and yet I feel as though we have. I mean, I know you've been in my chats and I've been in your chats and stuff, but I don't know that I've ever actually spoken to you. But
I think you're right. Like you said, like I watched a few of your videos. It is funny how YouTube works sometimes. And it's like you watch people's videos, you watch their lives, and you interact with them, and it kind of feels like you've met each other. But yeah, this is the person, and it's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
You too. What was I going to say? Oh, World's Biggest Collectors. That's a pretty daunting title to live up to, but I'm sure that I'm probably in like the top 1 percentile at this point with the way things are going and the way my collection's gone, But yeah, so I guess if we call that a big tent kind of title, like I can't compete with Tony or something like that, but who can? Really?
Nobody can. Nobody can. I've seen a few that have come close, but
Daisuke's pretty good. He's up there too.
He is. Yeah. I just discovered his channel the other day, actually, because Tony did a conversation with him. So
I love that.
He was
one of the first people I found in this sort of space, and he's just like the most kind, modest person on the planet, and he just always creates such thoughtful content, which is what I'm all about. So I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
But yeah, to actually answer your question, sorry.
You're good.
My name is Celeste de la Cabra. I use they and she pronouns, and I am here on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook. I'm sorry, not Facebook, Instagram. Don't find me on Facebook, please. On Instagram. And
I'll have a couple people find me on Facebook every now and then. I'm like, how did you find me here?
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with my channel.
And then I'm also on TikTok now. I only have a few videos up, but that's something that I've decided I want to make efforts towards, because I know that that's sort of where things are at right now in terms of discovery and things like that. So I'm trying to learn the lingo and the kind of, the lexicon of the platform to kind
Yeah.
of get in on it, you know. But
It's
on
tough over there, because
yeah,
I feel like you're kinda like I am, because when I click one of your videos, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but you have
mhm,
long form content is what I call
yes,
it. Your videos are usually about
exactly.
15, 20, 25 minutes. You're a little
Hmm.
long-winded. All my
Hmm.
videos are the same way. It's like I cannot
Yeah,
get all my thoughts out on something in
yeah.
a minute. So I find TikTok to be extremely stressful, because if I wanna talk
Hmm.
about something, I gotta get it in quick, and I gotta edit stuff out and get it in a
Yeah,
minute. So, yeah.
yeah. I was resistant to it for the longest time because I just sort of I don't know. I think I was being a hater or a contrarian or something, and I was like, I don't know. I don't like this move towards short form content. I like
Yeah.
my content to be very thoughtful and well articulated. And if that takes 20 minutes, it takes 20 minutes. But it's actually a pretty powerful little app and editing tool and everything. And there's some fun stuff on there. And I kind of think of it as like an appetizer for the real
Yeah.
content, you know. So that I'm hoping to
Absolutely.
just use it in that way.
Y
Um,
Yeah, I had a guy on here a couple of weeks ago. It will be a couple of weeks ago. The video actually hasn't gone up yet as we're recording, but
mhm.
it will be a couple of weeks ago by the time this goes up. But he makes a lot of fun content on TikTok, and I think it's just a bunch of little short, like kind of comedy skits involving him and physical media. He just has fun with it, and I think that's how you should use it.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, over on my channel, we do talk a lot about physical media. I have a complete collection tour video that I just uploaded at the very end of last year. Uh, Kind of a big overview of everything. Um, I do a lot of Criterion-based content. I do a lot of Blu-ray updates when I'm purchasing a lot, which is almost always. Uh, and
it's hard not
I
to in the game
do
we're in.
Yeah, and I am a Vinegar Syndrome subscriber, and so I review the monthly slate of titles every month as well. Um, but maybe maybe this is a terrible idea to say this on your channel, but I'm actually trying to move a little bit away from just doing all physical media content and trying to go more into like the in-depth film analysis that I do because those reviews are the ones that are the most gratifying for me to do and also the ones that feel most like the type of content that I want to be producing.
Yeah.
And people have been really connecting with those videos and that's just been a really rewarding experience. So that's sort of where I'm trying to take it, but I can't help myself. I'm always gonna talk about fucking Blu-rays and stuff. Like that's just I love them
It's
so
hard not
much,
to.
you
Yeah,
know?
my channel is geared mostly towards physical media, but I always view my channel as a way for me to talk about movies through the lens of
Exactly.
physical
Hmm.
media, and I get to discover all these awesome movies through the lens of all these incredible releases and
Hmm.
boutique labels, and I've discovered so many films that I would not
Exactly.
have if I wasn't collecting stuff like I
Yeah.
do. So,
I'm the same
um,
way.
definitely really cool. But yeah, I watched your video today. I watched the very polarizing movie Skinamarink. I
Mhm.
watched it today on Shutter, and then I watched your video. It
Mhm.
was a great video, very thoughtful for
Thank
sure.
you.
So I think that that's something you would be great at doing. You definitely bring a lot more thought provoking analysis on movies and stuff than I could. But it's that movie. I get why people don't like it, but
Mhm.
I feel like some people are looking at it the wrong way.
I
Um,
totally agree.
I felt like people are saying that there's nothing that happens in the movie. I think there's a lot of stuff that happens in the movie.
I think there's always
There's
something
a lot
happening
of
in the
there's a
film.
lot of depth to that film, and I've been thinking
Yeah.
about it ever since I watched it this morning. And
Mhm.
my wife watched it with me. She actually didn't hate it either. Neither one of
Mhm.
us can decide if we fully like really like it or not. But
Mhm.
I've been thinking about it a lot, and that's always a good thing. I'd rather a movie make me feel
Yeah.
something than to just
Mhm.
watch something for 2.5 hours and I get nothing out of it at all. Which is
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
honestly 70% of the movies I watch nowadays.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did appreciate that movie. Don't know if I loved it,
Mhm.
but I appreciated it for sure.
Yeah. I walked out of it and I just loved it the more and more I thought about it, and it also gave me such an emotional reaction and experience that is so unique compared to anything else I've seen. It
Yeah,
captures a very specific feeling that I don't think I've ever seen in a film before. That kind of feeling of being scared or having a nightmare when you're a very young child. It's just not a part of my life that I've thought about in a really long time, and this like brought it to the forefront in a way that was deeply upsetting.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it was a pleasant experience, but it was a very moving and powerful one. And that's kind of, I mean, I like fun films too, but the ones that really connect with me are the ones that give me a reaction like that. Um, and I definitely don't think that it's for everyone. Like, I would not begrudge somebody watching that and saying, I don't get it, that's not for me, or I do get it and it's still not for me.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing recently that has been a little bit upsetting is people being like, "Oh, you only said you like that to look cool, and nobody actually likes this. Like, it's
That
terrible." And I'm like,
that's the thing, because
that's such a rude thing to say."
I'm glad I came out of that movie understanding both your point of view and
Mhm.
people that hate it's point of
Yeah.
view, because I could totally see why somebody would say it's a masterpiece and one of the best horror films of the past like 2 decades. And I can
Mhm.
also see why somebody would say it's a steaming pile of shit. It's yeah. I got it when I
Yeah.
watched the movie, but you explained it perfectly because it was very personal to you, and I think that's what
Yeah.
that's kind of where our enjoyment of movies and how we consume them and how we perceive them comes from our personal experiences in life.
Yeah.
And that's why the movie like Paranormal Activity, when I first watched that, like that hit me in a certain way, because my wife used to have night terrors a lot, and she would just
Mhm.
come out of the room like screaming and stuff, saying that
Mhm.
something was in the corner in her room. And it was around that
Yeah, that's
same
really
time I
rough.
watched Paranormal Activity, and that movie scared the shit out of me, and it was because of my like personal real life experience. So, but I
Yeah.
think that people thought Skinamarink was gonna be like, it was being hyped up to be the next Paranormal Activity. That's really
Mm.
not what it is or what it's trying to be. It has opportunity to try to be like that, but it doesn't try to be like that. So I appreciated it.
Yeah, it's doing something completely different, I think, and it's just I don't know, it really does something that I've never seen any other film before do. Uh Yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe I was overhyping it, and the next day I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and I was just like, I think that that was a perfect 10 for me. Which, if you look at my Letterbox profile, which I'm also on Letterbox, I forgot about that one.
There we go. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but all the apps and social media accounts that you just mentioned, I will have linked down below in the
All
description,
right,
so everybody can
I
subscribe
appreciate that.
and follow at all the places.
I do appreciate that.
No
But
problem.
if you look at that, you'll see that I'm very maybe not stingy is the right word, but selective. I like that 10 out of 10 rating to mean something, and that's not to besmirch anybody else's rating system, but to me, like, I want that to have some kind of power behind it. Like, wow, this is really something that I
So
found to be powerful.
I agree. I completely agree. Do you, because you said 10 out of 10 and you also brought up
Mhm.
Letterbox, does it annoy you as much as it does me that they do 5 out of 5? Because I was so used to doing 10 out of 10 for so long. And when I got to Letterbox, it's like 5 out of 5. And I don't know how to do the conversion. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess since they allow half stars, I still think about it in terms of
Yeah.
10, and then the visual just makes it, I guess, easier on the phone or something like that.
Yeah.
A five-star system is fine with me as long as you allow the half stars. But
I'm so
10,
weird the
10
way I
is
think about that
generally,
stuff. It's
yeah.
like a 3 out of 5 doesn't sound bad. It sounds like a pretty decent movie. But when I
Hmm.
think of a 6 out of 10, that
Hmm.
seems like a movie that's bad to me. So, but the conversion's the same. I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
the way my mind works. I've always liked doing out of 10 though. I always think of it
yeah.
like a grading scale. Like a
Hmm.
6 is like pretty much failing, and when you get below that,
Oh,
you failed. Whereas a 7 would be like decent, a C, and a B would be pretty good at 8, and then 9
mhm.
would be an A, and 10 would be perfect. So, but
Interesting.
yeah, I've always gotten a lot of shit about that because people tend to think I overrate stuff because of how my mind works in terms of ratings. But
Well,
everybody be like, "Oh, it's a middle of the road movie. I'll give it a 5." To me, like that's a failure when I think about it. A 5 out of 10.
okay,
That's a
because
shit movie.
I do it the other way because I think if now, I mean, I respect people's rating systems. I think probably too much about rating systems and rating pieces of art. It's just something that my brain likes to do, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but to me, like, when you kind of think of it in like that report card kind of way, it kind of gives a very small window of gradients for things that you actually like versus a very large window of gradients for things that you didn't like.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, to me, at that point, I'm not sure what the difference between a 3 out of 10 and a 4 out of 10 is, where I guess for me, the way I kind of think about it is like 1 through 3 are films that I think are bad, and then 4 through 5 are the ones that I don't like, but I don't
Yeah.
think they're bad necessarily. A 6 is kind of like it's okay. Overall, I like it, but I have problems with it. 7 is like, yes, that's really good. I really like that, but it's not quite at like I love this, you know?
Yeah.
And then, 8, 9, and 10, those are like, this is the cream of the crop. Like, this is the really good stuff, like the stuff that I really love, which is still a lot of films. Like, I love a lot of films, but especially when you get into 9 and 10, I try to keep that more selective to the things that really impacted me.
Yeah, but I completely agree with you on you don't want to give everything a 10. I'll see a lot of people, they'll give
Mhm.
everything fives and tens and stuff. And I try to be careful when I first watch a movie.
Mhm.
I like most of the time I would never give a movie I just watched for the first time like a 10. Like I feel like that has to sit with me for a little bit. Maybe I need to rewatch
Mhm.
it. There's some movies you just know when you're done.
Yeah.
You're like that was incredible. I just witnessed a
Mhm.
masterpiece, and you give it a 10. Other movies have to sit with you for a while. But
Yeah.
this has been review scoring talk with Ken and Celeste. We appreciate y'all watching. No, I'm just joking.
This is the real nerdy shit that I could talk about for probably way too long. Just
I
like,
used to
let's really dive
really
into a 6 and a 7.
when I first started doing the social media thing, I only did Instagram and I would only review movies. I didn't do like the on
Mhm.
camera stuff until years later. So it was in
Right.
2017 I started my Instagram account, Mid Level Movie Reviews, which is the one that I don't use now. I use my physical media
Mhm.
spinoff page that I started. So I would review new movies, and I always just thought about my scores so much when I was
Mhm.
doing them. I just don't think about it as much anymore. I don't even give grades to like stuff I review anymore because
Mhm.
people get so hung up on it. They're like you
They
said,
do.
it's like they dissect everything that you say in the review. They're like, what you said, like 10 positive things about it, and you said two negatives. Why did you give it a 7
Mhm.
out of 10? That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it's not an exact science to me. Like when you're done,
Yeah.
when you think about it, you just know what you want to give something, I
Mhm.
guess. Like I
Yeah.
don't always break it down into everything. But anyway, let's talk about some of your recent Blu-ray buys. What's your recent Blu-ray buys? What are you into right now? What's the state of your physical media collection currently? Is what I like to ask
It's
people.
overwhelming. Is that a good word for it? I just
It
have
is.
I am okay, so I know that you've said I will not watch everything in my collection, and I've made peace with that. I'm
Yes, I
the
did say that.
opposite. I have a list on Letterboxd with everything in my collection, and that percentage watch haunts me. I I do have the goal to eventually hit that
But
100%,
do you think you
even
will?
though no, probably not. I mean,
I'm looking to my
conceivably,
left right here, and there is literally shit everywhere, all over the floor. Blu-rays. I'm like, I don't even know
yeah.
where to start with this stuff. Stuff all over my table. Uh,
Let's okay, so to put it in perspective, I think the number of unwatched films I'm at is somewhere around 850. So, I mean, even if I stopped buying anything tomorrow or only bought things I'd already seen, uh, I mean, you're looking at like 3 years worth of watching at the pace that I watch stuff if I only watch unwatched films? I mean, it becomes a little bit daunting, but it's also like, I mean, I bought this because I want to watch it? So it's almost like it's overwhelming in that there's too much of a good thing. I'm just
yeah.
surrounded by all these films that I want to experience, and the reality of time constraints kind of catches up with you. I'm also kind of out of room again. I need to kind of figure out. I have a shelf that isn't doing me a lot of favors that I think I'm going to replace with like a spinner one so that I can buy myself some more time, but
I've
that'll have
seen
to be
those spinner
sometime in the
ones. I don't know.
future.
I'm not a fan of the way they look. I might
Yeah.
get one. I don't know. I feel
You
like it
From
takes
what
up a
I've
lot of
seen,
spot.
it takes up a lot, like, width, I guess. Like, it's bigger than I thought it was gonna be, but it's certainly a lot more, for, like, a smaller space, it's way more efficient than spreading it out, like, across the wall. But I
I just
think
thought
from what
I
I've
thought I was
seen
watching Skinamarink again. But
from what I've seen, I think your space is pretty good. Like, I think
yeah, I
you have a
still
lot
got
of room.
still
I don't
got.
know that you have to worry
I'm gonna
about it
take you
yet.
around the room real quick. I still got a whole
Yeah.
wall over there. I'm good.
I'm not even approaching anything like that. I'm like, I have to pull box sets and just kind of shove them places, like little nooks throughout the room, just so something can fit, you know?
Yeah.
But in terms of recent purchases, I went way too hard on the Vinegar Syndrome subscriber week with those $10 titles. I felt like it was Christmas every single day, just going through those titles. And if you could believe it, I actually dialed it back quite a bit, and I did not buy everything I wanted, but I ended up with like 33 titles in my
Oh my
box.
goodness. I had somebody showing those off yesterday,
Mhm.
or on the because I
Yeah.
did the round table last night, and he
Yeah,
was
I
showing
watched
off
that.
stuff that I don't remember being in the
See,
sale, and
I'm
it was making me mad because I was like, I don't remember that, but I would have totally got that. And I looked at it every single day, so I don't know if there's like a day I missed or what happened.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I was so obsessively looking at every single one of those that I mean, I watched that this morning, and I like every single one of them that he pulled, I was either like, "Yeah, I bought that," or like, "Yeah, I
Mm,
decided I didn't want that." I remembered all of them, but, what I was actually doing that week, it was honestly too much. Like, even at those rock bottom prices, I couldn't afford to just get everything that I wanted.
yeah,
So what I would do with my girlfriend is a lot of them were on streaming, but the ones that weren't, I just bought it. Like, I feel pretty confident, especially in the partner labels. But especially for like the Vinegar Syndrome proper line stuff that is available on Tubi, we would just like do a marathon of the first 30 minutes of like 5 different films. And then I'd be like, okay, if I'm vibing with this, it's probably worth $10. And if I'm like, no, then
that's
it's probably
interesting.
worth a
That's a
miss,
good
you know?
idea. Because
Yeah,
my thought process is people are like, go ahead and watch it on Tubi and see if you want. And I was like, I want my first experience to be with the actual
exactly.
physical media
I'm the same way
release.
too.
It's
This is the
like, and
first
if
time
I
I've had to
watch
do
it on Tubi and I buy it, I'm not going to watch that thing again. I got too many other things
exactly.
to watch. So I want
Exactly.
to
It's going to
use
be
my,
too long.
yeah, but
Mhm.
that the first 30 minutes, that's a good idea. Or I may even go
Yeah.
like first 10, 15, see if I'm
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
vibing with the feel of the film. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's the first time I've ever had to do that. I've never been in a position where I wanted to buy like I mean, it was upwards of 10 titles every single day, and I had to like really think about how responsible I should be, you know.
Yeah.
It still ended up overwhelming, but you know, I've actually been working my way through it and having a great time. So, you know,
Well, that's good that you're working your way through it. That's always a
yeah, I
plus.
mean, it's intimidating, but we're getting there. I watched the Kid Candidate last night, which was I think one that Steelbook Obsessed pulled. It's about like a 24-year-old uh, kid, I guess, who ran for office in Amarillo, Texas. It was a pretty interesting documentary, and the special
Really?
features are actually really quite good. Um, and like, I don't know that that's the sort of thing I'll necessarily watch again, but for $10, it was absolutely worth that and going through everything. And it came with that nifty slipcover on it. So
Crazy.
yeah,
I
I've
haven't
just been
dove
having a
into all the
fun time.
partner label stuff yet. I know they got some
Ooh,
good stuff, but
that's
uh,
something we should talk about because that is the Vinegar Syndrome partner labels is my absolute favorite thing happening in physical media right now, and it's like not even close. So
yeah, so many movies out there, aren't there?
there's a lot. It's
So
very
many movies.
overwhelming.
Every time they keep putting all these movies out, I'm like, how is there that many movies that
Yeah.
have existed that they have
Mhm.
enough to put out like 15 a month?
Yeah.
But
Every
they
month
do.
it's like
A lot of movies.
it's so much.
A lot of movies, because you think about it, it's like not only U.S. history, but you have all these other countries and
Mhm. Yeah.
just through decades, and there are movies that have been lost in time that people
Yeah.
don't talk about. Because you think about it
Mhm.
now, it's like we have all kinds of stuff that come out the streaming that people forget about in a week and don't think
Mhm.
about again. And
Mhm.
maybe in 20 years, those will be coming out in some kind of, hopefully, some kind of
Maybe.
physical media label. Maybe not. Maybe they'll be injecting them into people's brains by then. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Streaming
what's
chip.
yeah, yeah. What would you say that you? How many titles do you have in your collection currently?
So I attempted to answer this question at the beginning of my room tour. It depends on how you want to categorize it because, like I said, I am an insane person and I have actually made a very detailed letterbox list of every single film in my collection with like notes notating like what, like who put it out or
Is there
like
a
if it's a
spot on
special feature
Letterbox
for
to
something.
catalog your collection, or is it just
So I
something
just
you
made
made
a
a list
list.
on? Okay,
I made a list and then there's a way that you can tag it such that it knows that these are the films you own. So now whenever I go to a films page on Letterboxd and I go down to where it says where to watch, it'll tell me that I own it, which I'm
Oh,
sure
nice.
people
I
can
didn't know that.
understand. At a certain point, you have to be reminded that you own certain things,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know?
getting in trouble because
Yeah.
sometimes I'll be if I go to a Goodwill now or Half Price Books or any kind of thrifting shop,
Mhm.
I'm like, do I have this? Did I buy this like
I
two
have to
years
check the
ago?
list,
And it's
especially if it's something that I haven't seen yet. I'll
yeah,
honestly, sometimes, like, these Disney movies, these older ones, like the classic ones, I'm like, "Do I have Bambi? Or is it Peter
yeah,
Pan, the one that I have?" I don't know. I have to check, you know? Um,
yeah. I need to beef up my collection on those. I'm hoping that they do like some kind of collector's editions for like some of the classic Disney animated stuff. I just don't buy a lot of Disney really. I'll buy
I
a
don't
couple of
either.
them, couple of the Marvel films every now and then
Yeah.
because I'm still kind of into those and we'll watch it with my son. Like we just watched Black
Mhm,
Panther, Wakanda Forever tonight, but
mhm.
beyond that, like I don't buy too much.
Yeah, I'll buy them on, like, used because, like, especially in, like, Goodwill lots, you'll find them a lot, so that's where I've ended up with a lot of them, but, buying them new, they honestly don't go down in price a lot, like, ever, so
Yeah,
they
I think
kinda
that's the
just
main
stay
reason why.
fixed, you know? And then, I have Disney Plus, I don't pay for it, but I have it through, I think, my
Yeah.
girlfriend's parents or something. Somebody has it, so we have access, but yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I think of it. And I don't even have Disney Plus right now. I canceled it, but
Mhm.
I was like, Disney Plus is there and it has all this stuff. So why do I need to? And it
Yeah.
should always be there because it's Disney. Like, why would they pull their own stuff? But yeah, they probably will at some
Theoretically.
point. They
I
probably
mean,
will.
HBO Max did it already, so there's that.
Yeah, nobody's safe, and it is Disney. They don't give a crap.
I
They'll
mean,
take.
if HBO is willing to pull their own IP specifically such that they don't have to pay residuals to the actual creators, like, Disney's not gonna give a fuck. Like, I could definitely see that happening, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know,
It
it
is crazy.
sucks. I mean, I
Uh,
don't need to tell you, that's, like, what we're doing here is trying to tell people this stuff, you know?
We're trying. We're trying
Yeah.
like hell. But I really honestly believe that we're just a part of a small group and breed of people that care.
Mhm.
I believe that
Yeah.
most people just don't care. They're like, oh well,
It's
they took
it
Westworld off.
hurts.
I watched it, or there's so much other stuff to watch. I don't have to worry about it anyway.
It hurts, but it's true. Like, I saw sometimes I'll see, like, a normal person on social media, and I'll get a reality check, and they'll be like somebody will be like, "Man, I miss physical media," and then somebody will be like, I don't have to get up to put the disc in anymore." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"How little do you value this art that you're not willing to get up off the couch and put the disc
I
in?"
love the walk to the Blu-ray or 4K player to put the disc in. That's
Yeah,
like
it's
my favorite
nice.
part.
It's so
Getting to
nice.
just take the disc out and pop it in, push the
Yeah.
button. It's so satisfying.
It's like a calming ritual, you know?
Yeah.
I
I
don't know,
love
we
it.
don't you and your audience know why this stuff is important, but
Yeah.
actually, that ties back to a compliment I wanted to give you earlier as to why I think I like your channel so much. Because, I mean, you are very focused on the physical aspect of things like, you know, steelbooks and slipcovers and all this fun kind of
Yeah.
physical stuff that is inherent to that kind of thing. Um, but I think that at its core, you really do this because you believe in film preservation and you believe in film access and you just actually love films themselves, which is
Yeah.
exactly how I feel. Like, I feel that physical media is an avenue for discovery and the primary way through which we preserve our cultural history and our art. And to me, it almost becomes like a mission statement as opposed to just like a
Yeah.
fun collecting thing. Like, I really do deeply believe in the importance of this. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm
there's
having the time of my life right now because I've loved movies
Mhm.
since I was a kid, as far as I can remember. But like I
Yeah.
watched very specific types of movies when I was younger. Like I wouldn't branch out
Mhm.
into other genres. I loved horror, I loved
Mhm.
comedy, and action movies. And I would watch like the Disney stuff when I was a little kid. Of course, adventure films and things like that. But I never watched westerns and giallo films and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
when I was a
Mhm.
kid. And just now learning about all these films and even like just basic classics like Scarface
Mhm.
or just like the older gangster films or The Godfather.
Mhm.
I didn't watch The Godfather for the first time till like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm discovering all these classics that I never watched when I was younger, and
Yeah, for
it's very
sure.
satisfying.
I mean, like even these bulletproof classics that we kind of feel like are untouchable. I mean, they're not safe so long as there's not access to them and the people in charge of recommending things aren't recommending it. You know, if the algorithm doesn't think that The Godfather is algorithm friendly, then and if everybody just watches something on Netflix, then that sort of thing gets buried versus if Paramount puts out a brand new restoration and it's everybody's talking about it and
Yeah.
maybe a film class will screen it or something like that, or your local theater might screen it. I mean, these sorts of things I just think are important to keeping these films in the conversation. I mean, there's so many films that get released recently where people are like, I forgot about that. And then for me, as a younger person, I'm just like, I've never even heard of that, but
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. Like I might have heard about it if it's on a list somewhere or if it's like very, very highly acclaimed. But if it's like a really deep cut, and maybe it didn't get the best reviews at the time or something, but somebody saw something in it and they're willing to give it the treatment it deserves, then I'm excited about it and I'll give it a chance. I'll when it comes to art, I will try anything once. Like there's really nothing that I'm gonna see and be like, no, fuck that. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but like maybe these really, really kind of cynical Christian movies that are out that I think barely qualify as
What are
art.
they?
Maybe not those,
The Dove
but
approved titles at Walmart.
the like pure flicks shit. You know what I mean?
God is
Anyway,
dead.
yeah, like God's not dead, that kind of thing. I might
Yeah.
watch those maybe for a laugh, but like you know, generally speaking, anything I will
Yeah.
try at least once and give it a fair shake and
Yeah.
try to see, what other people see in it or what the creator saw in it that they felt that they were passionate enough to put so much of their time and energy into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you there. I just, grew up with such I feel like basic knowledge of
Mhm,
film. I feel like I've seen so many movies throughout my life, but once you
mhm,
get on the internet, you realize you haven't seen shit. And
mhm.
everybody reminds you of that. Oh my God, I can't
Yeah,
believe you haven't seen this movie and this movie and this movie. And it's like if I had seen every single movie ever made like you all want me to, this would be boring to me. Like this
yeah.
what drives me to continue to do this is the fact that I have all these awesome films that I've never seen ahead of me. Like
Mhm.
that's what motivates me to keep going.
Yeah, the
So yeah,
discovery is so much fun just in and of itself. I almost when I was in high school, actually, I think I had this mentality to a fault where when I was first getting into like black metal or something like that, I would skip a lot of the like really bulletproof classics on purpose because I'd be like, I don't want to run out of like the all-timers. Like I want to keep
yeah,
looking forward to that kind of thing. Uh, Now, at this point, I've kind of learned that it never ends. You'll always find a new classic or something that was previously kind of hidden, or what's a classic to everyone else might not be to you, and you might find your own personal classics. You know what I mean? So the discovery really never
absolutely.
stops. So I've kind of gotten away from that mentality, um, but I
Yeah,
totally understand that. Like I always look forward to what's next.
for sure. And yeah, you get all these, new awesome 4K releases, and people will be like
Mhm.
recommending stuff to me. I'm like, well, I kind of joke about it. I'll be like, well, I'll get to it when a 4K comes out. Uh, and I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of serious also because I have so much to watch now, and I like it to be tied to like what's coming out currently because that's what I
Mhm.
usually cover on the channel. Um, and I'm getting all these awesome releases pretty much every week, and it's a lot of movies I've never seen. So I just enjoy it as it comes, and I don't
Yeah.
veer too far out of line. Every now and then I'll check out a recommendation just randomly that somebody recommends to me. So,
Mhm.
um, but let's get into where it started with you and collecting. How long you've been collecting? When did this collecting mentality kind of take over you, and not necessarily your life, but just start to
I think
form
that's
your.
probably fair.
I think it's fair to say, for a lot of us collectors, but I didn't want to
Mhm.
assume
No,
that.
that's
But
that's very gracious of you, but I think that that's probably appropriate.
yeah,
Uh,
it does take over for sure.
so, like I said, I'm relatively young compared to my uh, YouTube demographics and analytics, but like I'm 25, so I'm old enough to remember like I had VHS when I was very, very young, and we
Yeah.
had DVDs in the house. And I remember when Blu-ray came out, and it was such a big deal. I don't remember when 4K came out because honestly, I wasn't really paying attention, and I was probably in high school or college or something. But you know,
2016.
oh really? Okay, then I would have graduated high school then. Yeah. Um, so yeah, so I mean, I got into streaming, as a convenience and as part of it, but I would always like we rented movies from Netflix. They still do that, by the way. I did that for a little bit. It's
I
actually a
heard
pretty good
that. I heard
service.
that. I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
They still do GameFly and everything.
Mhm. Um, you know what? Actually, while I'm on the subject, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick plug. I use a service called 3dbluRayRental.com.
Okay.
It's the name comes from, I guess, back in the day when 3D Blu-rays were like really big and really expensive. So they wanted to
They
create
were.
like a specialty site because Netflix wouldn't have it. But now what they do is exclusively cater to like boutique collectors and stuff. And so they stock all the new 4Ks, like all the new Criterion, all the new Scream Factory, all the new Vinegar Syndrome, like all that stuff. And you can rent it for like $3 a disc. And
Really?
so
What is this site again?
3dbluRayRental.com. I've been trying to
3D
tell
Blu-ray.
people because it has been a
Why don't they change
lifesaver
their
for me.
name?
I'm thinking about like emailing them and being like, look, I've been like singing your praises for a minute. Let's work something out, get a better name. We'll do a sponsorship deal. It'll be
Yeah.
good.
Hell yeah.
But like that's kind of how, like, for a lot of the stuff, especially like I don't know, Screen Factory or some of the newer studio 4Ks that are just like really expensive but not necessarily my kind of thing, or just I don't know, it's just not in the budget at the moment. If I want to watch something,
Yeah.
I'll rent it and then I get to see the transfer and all the special features. I just don't own it yet, but I mean, it saved me money, and that there's things I've rented where I was like, I'm really glad I didn't buy that. But then it's also gotten me in trouble a few times because like I rented the first disc out of the Arrow Shaw Brothers set, and I was like, that was amazing. I need this
Oh
set, and
yeah.
now I'm like, I'm gonna get it at some point.
See, that's another
Um,
huge blind spot for me is Kung Fu, and I did watch the Lady
mhm,
Whirlwind double pack that came out from Arrow, so
mhm.
I dipped my toes into it a bit, but they're
Um,
definitely good
I
movies.
would say since the halfway subscription for Vinegar Syndrome since last year would be when I got into it because it was a huge blind spot for me too. Like obviously martial arts is so deeply influential to so many different parts of our pop culture that I was familiar with a lot of these tropes. But actually watching some of these classic martial arts films, I'm just really getting into it and also seeing what I've been missing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
start to see like, wait a minute, Quentin Tarantino really did rip everything off.
At least he's open about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, that was an aside. I apologize.
You're
But
good.
what I was getting at is that streaming was always like something that was a convenience, and it was a, I guess, supplement to what I felt was the primary means by which we should be exploring these things. Because, like, I've been no stranger to trying to find something on Netflix and it's not there anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I always thought, like, if I really want something, I'm going to buy it. And I also have always had the mentality of supporting artists, I guess, just coming up on like the punk and metal scenes. Like, that's just a very big part of the ethos is like you always support the bands because like no one else is going to. And like they're doing this out of their own passion. And if you connect with it, like it's something you should support. Um,
absolutely.
So that's kind of another way that I look at it is I always want to buy these things to support the restorations and support the artists who created it. Because they don't, unfortunately they can't do it for free. So, but uh, yeah, it wasn't until the pandemic when I really got into it because I'm a huge music enthusiast, and uh, I used to go to shows like 2 or 3 times a week all through college, and then in my first few years out of school. Um, and then when the pandemic hit, I couldn't do that anymore. And so I was just kind of like, I'm just like literally sitting here with all this time and money. What do I even do with it?
Yeah,
And lo and behold, I found an avenue pretty quickly. And that took on kind of like a sickness pretty fast.
my
And now I go to
collection
shows.
definitely ramped up quite a bit
Yeah.
during the pandemic for sure, and
And
this
now,
channel really
yeah,
started then
yeah,
too.
for sure. And yeah, now I just go to shows and buy way too many movies. So it's
Everything
awesome.
went back to normal, and you went back to doing your old stuff, and had a new addiction along with it.
I gotta say though, I don't go to shows like I used to because sometimes I literally am just like, yeah, I could do this, but I really want to watch this tonight. So
Okay, yeah, you'll realize as you get older that going out kind of loses its luster a little bit,
I
for
just,
sure.
yeah, it's a whole thing. I just kind of became a bit of a homebody because I took and I am still taking this pandemic like extremely seriously. So I was pretty good about acclimating to just not leaving the house and watching movies all the time. And I guess I still have one foot in that world, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I never. My wife likes to go to concerts and stuff like that, but I've never
mhm,
been much of a concert person. Probably since I was a teenager. Like I used to like going to stuff back then. But
mhm.
I used to go to the theater a lot, and that's something that definitely changed through the pandemic. And now I've gotten to the point where I just don't even want to go to the theater. I'm like, why can't they just put all the movies on streaming? Damn it! But I know the importance of the theater, and I know that's a selfish
Yeah.
want. But I'm like, just put them all on TV so I can watch it
I've
at home.
honestly yeah, I've honestly never been a huge fan of the theater. Okay, the primary reason is because of my like auditory processing issues. I just have subtitles and everything. Like I need subtitles. And
I
that's
do
always a
too.
pain in the theater, you know. Um, I think that like it's become so accessible with streaming and stuff that kind of everybody's doing subtitles now, which I think rules because you used to get weird looks, but like I've been doing it since I was a kid because my mom is from Costa Rica and so she needed them to kind of help her learn
Yeah.
English. So we just always had them on growing up. Now I don't know if that's what caused these issues or what, but also I have this kind of auditory thing where uh, it's difficult for me to understand sentences, especially from like a TV or something. So uh, that's always been really helpful. And so the theater is not ideal for that kind of thing, especially if they have the sound up too high, which they almost always do. So
Yeah, it's weird. It's
yeah.
like we'll go in there and it's either like blasting or it's too
Hmm.
low. It's like they never have it right anymore. It's like I know they're short staffed and
Hmm.
running on fumes or whatever, but it's like they just never get anything right anymore, it feels
Yeah,
like. So
I'm sure you saw in my review, but when we saw Skinamarink in the theater, which I'm so glad we got to do, I think they turned it up too loud because whoever set it up was like, "Oh,
I was
there's
gonna
no
I didn't
sound.
get
I
a
gotta
chance
turn it up."
to comment on your video, but like we were watching it today and my wife like
Uh-huh.
jumped out of her skin when that moment happened with the
Mhm.
I don't want to spoil anything, but the doll on the ceiling.
Yep. Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so it was really loud for us too at home. So I think that
Okay.
that might have been the movie, but also they
Okay.
might have turned it up too loud.
I think it might have been worse if anybody actually checked it because it's so quiet for so much of it, and the
Yeah,
contrast is so extreme in the jump scares. I was rough, but
yeah,
you
I
know.
turned it up really loud. I just like the sound of it because it kind of reminded me of watching like a movie from like the 20s or something, 20s or not that I watch
Mhm.
a lot of those, but just like an older movie that
Mhm.
hasn't been like fully restored. It just kind of gave me those
Yeah.
vibes.
Mhm.
But um, let's see. So have you always been into movies since as far back as you remember? Or is this something that you developed more recently? How long have you been into the film and the movies?
I think my earliest memory is of me watching Dumbo, so I think it goes pretty far back. My mom has always been really into movies, and that's sort of something that we could do together and connected over is watching films a lot. Our tastes have definitely diverged at this point, and
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask because you
because
seem to have a very refined film taste at this point in your life. What were some of your favorites you remember watching when you were younger, like a
when I
kid?
was a kid, my favorite films were probably like I know The Terminator was like my favorite film for a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, Nightmare Before Christmas was one of them. Um, I don't know that I've ever been asked this. I'm trying to remember. Uh, because I didn't get into horror films until relatively late.
Yeah.
Because at first I wasn't allowed to watch them, and then at that point it had been built up into something that I was afraid of. Uh, by the time I was allowed to get away with it, and so it didn't take long for it to catch on. But
Well,
like
at
I
that
was
point,
delayed for
when you
sure.
started getting into horror a little bit more, I imagine you're a pretty big horror fan now.
Mhm.
Did you start off with the basic slashers like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, or did you start with some of the more classic like Exorcist, Shining, Poltergeist type horror?
Yeah, so my cousin was the person who got me to finally watch them, and he was into the stuff that was out at the time. So like mid like early 2010s to late 2000s. So the first horror film I ever watched was The Strangers, and I hated it at the time because it didn't scare me, and that's like what I wanted or like what I was
Yeah.
expecting. I've rewatched it
I've
since,
only
and
seen that
I
movie
do enjoy
once.
it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I looked at it completely differently the second time, obviously. And then after that was, I think, Grave Encounters, and that scared the shit out of me when
I
I
don't think
first
I've
saw
seen
it.
that one.
I need
I
to
think I've seen
rewatch
it.
it because I have it pretty hyped up in my mind just because it really got to me at a very formative stage.
Yeah.
But it might be terrible. I'm not sure. But we were
I've
really
heard
into
of
the
it.
found footage stuff. So we watched a lot of Paranormal Activity, basically all the ones that were coming out, basically. And then on my
I love
own, I would
Paranormal
start
Activity.
to.
Like those are some of my
Mhm.
favorites. First
I
three,
enjoy
at
them as
least.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
the third one's my favorite. It's quite good, really.
Yeah, that's still the scariest theatrical
Mhm.
experience of my life when she opens
Yeah,
that door and all the old ladies are out there holding the candles. I
it's
was like, ah!
it's
I have an
pretty wild.
irrational fear of older ladies. And my wife
I'm
always
gonna
jokes with me that
I'm
she's going to scare me a lot when she's older.
I'm gonna confess something to you. I am also afraid of old ladies. I don't know what it is, but like the
They're
ending of
terrifying.
Insidious like scared the shit out of me when I
Yes.
first
Yeah.
saw it.
And
I don't know
visits.
what it is.
The visit was a little goofier, but it still scared the shit out of me when she was crawling underneath
I haven't seen that
the
one
floor
actually.
space. It's a good one.
That's
It's a
an
good
M
M
Night
Night
one, right?
Shyamalan movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
He's
kind
a
of
you know.
he was finding his footing again, and he dove
Mhm.
into found footage, and
Mhm.
it's a good one. I like the visit
Yeah.
a lot. I like the visit a lot. Definitely better than the
Um,
last Airbender, so it was a good rebound for him.
he's a mixed bag, but he has some good ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, after I kind of was like into it and I wanted to explore it on my own, I would check out the classics from the library because, my parents obviously didn't have much of a horror collection at all. So I watched like The Shining and The Exorcist and Psycho that way. I would also rent them from Netflix whenever my mom would let me get away with it. Uh,
Yeah.
so I discovered things that way.
Psycho was one for me that I watched. That was honestly probably one of my first horror films. And it's funny when you're a kid, you don't think of like older films as older films. I feel like you just kind of watch them as
Mm-hmm.
movies. I never thought of Psycho as like a classic or an older film, even though it was in black and white. I would just watch it, and it was one of my favorite horror movies. I watch a movie all the time.
I think when I was a kid, I definitely, or when I was younger at least, I definitely would categorize these things differently.
Yeah,
Like I would say something like X is my favorite black and white movie, or X is my favorite old movie, or something like that. Not X the film, obviously, but like,
yeah,
as a variable. But like
yeah,
now I think I just watch so much of everything from every time period, from every country, every genre that it just I don't even think about it that way anymore. Like I'll watch, I don't know, something that came out yesterday and then like On the Waterfront or something, and it doesn't feel that much different to me. Like we're still doing the same thing. We're still reaching for the same goals. Like I'm approaching it the same way as a viewer, and as I'm assessing my enjoyment of it or analyzing its themes, I'm always doing it the same way. I mean, it is relative to the time period that it's in, especially whatever political messaging it's exploring. But I don't know. I guess sometimes I am reminded that some people like don't watch black and white movies or don't watch pre-2000s movies or something, and I just find that mind-boggling because
yeah. A good movie is a good movie,
yeah,
regardless of the
they
time period.
mhm,
I had that kind of hit me in the face because I was reluctant to go back and watch black and white movies a few years ago.
mhm.
Um, and I watched like 10 or 12 films from like 1931. I don't know why I picked that film that year specifically, but I watched Fritz Lang's M for the
That's a
first
good one.
time. And I
I
was
was
like, I
trying to think what
cannot
came out in
believe
31.
a
Yeah.
movie like this came out in 1931. I was like, that's incredible. And that just kind of opened my eyes to realize that, regardless of what time, I shouldn't, hold
Mhm.
any kind of bias towards any time period when it comes to movie watching. I should be open to everything
Yeah,
because,
M is
and
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was just stunned by it. I was like, damn, this is like a David Fincher movie in
Yeah, it
1931.
is,
It
huh.
was
Mhm.
incredible. Also watched City Lights for the first
I
time. I
still
remember
haven't seen that
watching
one.
from that year. That
Charlie
was great
Chaplin is a
too.
pretty big blind spot. I think I've seen The
That's
Kid
the
and
only one
some of
I've
his
seen.
shorts, and that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah?
but City Lights was the only one that I've
I've
seen. But
heard amazing things.
that year had Dracula, Frankenstein,
Oh,
so I watched
Dracula,
both of
yeah.
those for the first time. And yeah, I think my goal at the time, which I'd still love to do something like this, was to watch like 10 movies from every year in the 30s. and just kind
Mhm.
of worked my way up. But I just kind of fell off after
I
1931.
think I think that is a great idea, and
Yeah,
also would be a very fun segment for your channel to pick 10 movies from every year and then
yeah.
just kind
Well,
of
I
review them.
already do that, but I started at 1980, so I'm on
Mhm.
like 92 right now. I think I just
Yeah.
did 92, but I would love to go back way further. It's just right now, like I do the years that I know the movies in, pretty much.
Mhm.
But I would have to actually do my homework and watch at least like 10 to 20 movies to do a video like
Yeah,
that for
you're,
the years back in the day.
you're 10 you're talking about, like, the 10 films from this year that you need on Blu-ray or something like that?
Yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah, that series, I feel like you there's a lot of favorites in there for sure.
yeah.
And now that I might just steal this idea, but I really like the
Do it.
idea
Go ahead.
of picking 10
You've
films
seen
from
a
every
lot more
year that
movies than me. You could definitely go back and probably do it justice a lot better.
well, like, I like the idea of really going through the history of cinema by picking 10 films from every year that I've never seen before and then
Yeah,
talking about them that way,
yeah.
But
Every time I do
that's
one of
not
those
to
videos,
disparage the video you do. I really like those videos a lot.
every time I do one of those videos, I try to maybe watch one or two, like if I have the time that I haven't
Mhm.
seen, so I can talk about them.
Okay, yeah,
But
that's a
yeah,
good idea.
most of the time it's movies that I've seen or I forgot about. I'll look up and
Mhm.
see like what I got back there and what's cool to
Yeah.
talk about.
Mhm.
Um, but let's see. We talked about your history with collecting, and you really got into it. So before the pandemic, did you have a collection of any kind? Did you have any Blu-rays in your collection? DVDs? Did you ever have a
I
DVD
did.
collection?
I did. I had both. I didn't distinguish between the 2, and it didn't take me long to figure out the
Big
I
quality
mean, just the
difference.
universe of difference between the 2. But I would
DVD
just
to
go to,
Blu-ray for
like
sure.
oh my god, it's astounding. But, like, I would just go to, like there's a local video game store that sells movies, and I would just pick up whatever I wanted from there for, like, a dollar, $3, something like that.
Yeah,
Um, and I had, like, I don't know, a couple rows worth. Like, it really wasn't anything compared to what it is now, but I just kind of started getting into it through, like I think Criterion was the first one that I really got into, and then I got into Era Video after that, and it just kind of I don't know, sort of a death spiral of sorts into the madness that it's become.
is that
Really,
where you
it's
find that your film taste really started to develop when you started to get into some of those other some of
for
those
sure,
boutique
yeah.
labels and stuff that had you watched a lot of classic films before, or that's when you really just started deep diving into
Um,
some
I
of the more
had seen
obscure
a good
stuff?
amount. I'd seen a good amount because, like, my mom was pretty good about, like, showing me older films. And yeah, I mean, I used IMDb as my primary resource when I was in high school, and there's a lot of older films in that top 250 and stuff. That's kind of where my North Star was in terms of trying to catch up on a lot of the really big classics. Um, but it wasn't until I got a subscription to the Criterion channel that I think I really, really started to get deep into it and take it seriously. And honestly, uh, yeah, the physical media kind of came as a result of that because I
Yeah,
wanted access to all these films, and you have to buy them because they're too like I mean on the Criterion channel they'll be there, but a lot of them will leave, and then you know, so
there's just a world of difference
mhm,
between holding an actual movie
yeah,
in your hands and just finding it
yeah,
on the streaming service and clicking. It just feels so disposable, and it just has a
it
lot more
does.
weight to it.
It
Um,
does. I think I got into it through that, and I became very, like, hyper obsessed with, like, what was leaving at the end of the month, and I would pull up lists of what was leaving at the end of the month of every streaming service, and I would kind of binge stuff that way. Um, and then I got more into purchasing stuff, and I felt that I was taking more time to appreciate them when I watched them on the disc because I had spent money on them, and, like, I could it's kind of like a it doesn't feel right to just kind of leave it or come back to it as much as it
yeah,
does on streaming. And I feel like I was taking it more thoughtfully that way. Uh, and I started renting from Netflix again, but then I stopped when I realized that I could get 4Ks from this other lovely site. Um, so yeah.
absolutely. Well, let's get into just what type of collector you are,
Mhm.
and well, I've got a variety of questions to go over. Are you Are you a big like day one buyer, or you usually wait for the sale?
So I buy things day one, maybe less than 10 times in a year.
Yeah,
It's not, I have so much to catch up on already that unless it's something that I absolutely need or it's something, I think the vast majority of day one purchases that I'll do at all is during the Barnes and Noble Criterion sales because it
yeah.
happens to be out day one
You,
and 50% off. So I'll get
and they're
those.
always so nice. They seem to put out their best stuff
Mhm.
during those months
Yeah.
too. It's
And
like,
like last year, I bought the Bob's Burgers 4K Steelbook from Best Buy because that was the only way to get it on 4K. And it was a beautiful Steelbook. And we were just like, we don't want to risk that selling out. So that was like a
yeah,
must. Um, no, though generally, it really is like in the single digits how often I'll do that. I will wait like at least a couple weeks because I mean, I don't have to tell you, you do a great job keeping track of it, but like the prices go down always, you know. It's a
they
matter
do.
of
You-
waiting.
You're doing it the smart way. The rest of us are doing it the dumb way for sure. And but you already have pretty much 4 or 5 releases built in that you buy day one every month with the Vinegar Syndrome
That's exactly what I was
sale.
about to say. I was thinking
Yeah,
about it, and I guess I don't think about it this way, but with the Vinegar Syndrome subscription, they do send me that stuff early.
yeah,
Uh, and for all the partner labels, I do pre-order those a lot or buy them day one a lot because since I'm a subscriber, I get them half off. So it doesn't feel like I'm buying them day one because I'm getting them for the sale price, but
yeah,
I do that a lot. But in terms of like
absolutely.
a new studio release, like never. I typically
Yeah,
wait till like a significant price
I don't
drop,
see you as too big of, I guess, mainstream buyer. You're not buying
Mhm.
a lot of the mainstream stuff. At least not day one. You probably wait until it goes on sale,
Yeah,
Black Friday.
when it comes to like Vinegar Syndrome, I'm pretty much all of my stuff has slips on it, and now I'm scared to break that pattern. But in terms of studio stuff, I kind of don't care. So it's like
Yeah,
it's okay if I miss it.
I've
Like
heard a
I
lot of
saved
collectors
20 bucks.
adopt that mentality for sure. Like they'll be like, I
Mhm.
care about my boutiques. I do not care about the studio stuff. And I
Mhm.
wish that I could get myself in that mindset, but for some
Yeah.
reason, I still want those studio slips when they come out.
I mean,
Um,
I
I
don't
would
blame
definitely
you.
save a lot
Like
of
they can
money.
be pretty nice and they look better on the shelf. Like I've stopped being I was a slipcover hater for like a second and then I was like, this is stupid. Like they're nice. I like them.
Yeah, the image that we got in the background right here is my 4K collection, and most of them have
Mhm.
slip covers, and I just think it looks better when they have slip
Yeah.
covers. But my Blu-rays back there, most of those don't have slip
Mhm.
covers, and I'm fine with that for some reason. But like when it
Yeah.
comes to the 4Ks, I want them with the slip covers. I don't know.
So for Vinegar Syndrome, it's like almost a deal breaker, which I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit. But for like Kino Lorber, it's kind of like I'm excited if I get it, and I might get something on a sale earlier to try to maybe get it. Like I wanted to get like the Dollars trilogy films, the for a few dollars more,
Yeah,
and
I'm so
Fistful of
upset I
Dollars.
don't have Good, Bad, the Ugly with the slip cover, but I know
Yeah, I
it
knew
went
I
out of the
missed out
print
on that.
early.
Yeah, I missed out on that. But that when those came out, the very first sale, like I didn't need them that right then, but I was like, I might get the slip with it, so I'm gonna get it now,
They're
like that
such
kind of
yeah,
thing.
that's such beautiful
But
artwork on those too.
and I mean, especially with Kino Lorber, I don't buy any of that stuff day one because their sales are so ridiculously good and
Yeah.
like the turnaround is so fast. I don't quite understand it, but it works for me. So
Most of the time, I feel like 8 or 9 times out of 10, if it's a
Mhm,
newer 4K title and you wait for the sale, and they do sales pretty much every 3 months, you'll
mhm.
get that title with the slip.
For that, yeah, I mean, if the slip goes out of print before the sale, it is what it is. But every time except for one, like it'll actually have the slipcover image on the site, and
Yeah.
every time that I've bought that, I've gotten it. Except in the last sale, I bought the Dr. Phibes 2-pack with Vincent Price. Um, Partially because I thought the artwork was so cool and I wanted the slip on it, and then I bought it with that image, and I guess I mean, I don't blame them. It happens. It probably sold out like in the interim,
Yeah.
and they didn't have time to update the image yet, so I didn't get it. But it's okay. Like I bought it on the sale. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll get over it. Get over it. Let's see. So this is kind of a repeat, but do you buy a lot of the mainstream releases or mostly boutique, would you say?
Um, I mean, it's mostly boutique for sure, but I don't want it. sound like snobby or something and be like, I'm never buying a studio release. It's Criterion or bust. Like, no, I mean, like last Black Friday, I went pretty hard and got quite a few. But that's the thing. Like, I'll wait for a good price on it. Like, it's just very low priority for me because I know it's not going anywhere, and I don't have any particular affinity to like Universal or something like I do for any number of other companies.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty okay about just waiting for the right price on that kind of stuff, unless it's like, I mean, that Bob's Burgers is really the only one I can think of where I just wanted something in particular and I did not want to risk it selling out. So
Yeah.
for the most part, I'm just like, it'll be there in a year. Like, I'm not too worried about it.
Did you get that Universal Monsters Volume 2?
Not yet.
4K sale?
Not
Well,
yet. I have the
I'm
first
not
one,
trying to
and
tempt you, but it is $38 right now on Amazon. I don't know if
yeah,
it'll probably go lower. And the thing with
yeah.
those, they'll always be in that box set. You don't
Mhm.
have to worry about it, not being the box set. So that's always good
Yeah.
with those little digipack sets Universal does.
I have the first 4K set, and I have the big 30 film collection.
Yeah.
And I have watched every film in it. It was a great like Halloween marathon. I did one every day because it was like 31 films almost exactly, so that was fun. Uh, but yeah, I think those are like probably worth upgrading, and I'll get those at some point, probably closer to Halloween time when I want to rewatch them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, past that, I don't know how many of those are really necessary for upgrading, but we'll see.
Bride of Frankenstein looked pretty great. And Creature
It's a good one.
from the Black Lagoon looked good. They all look good, really. All of
Yeah,
them.
I like all four of those films quite a bit, so I'll get it eventually for sure.
Yeah. Which boutique label is your favorite out of all the
I was thinking
boutiques?
about this today because I had a feeling you would ask me that. For years, I mean, really since I started this, the unambiguous answer was Criterion. Like, they were the one that got me into it, and I was kind of an obsessive of theirs for a while. Like, I was
Yeah.
trying my best. I was really tracking down like all the outer print stuff, and I just knew a lot about Criterion, and I was always discussing in the groups and stuff like that. And I still kind of want to, but for a while I had this idea that I would have all of their titles or have at least all of their Blu-rays because I'm not really interested in DVDs. It's a little bit harder now with 4K upgrades coming out that are just honestly better, and I'm like, do I really need both? But uh, yeah, I would say that it is Criterion in terms of the quality of the films themselves. Like, as a body of work, I don't think it's close. Like, maybe Kino Lorber is a good like second place for that because they put out
Yeah.
some really amazing stuff. Um,
Kino Lorber's really been ramping it up. For
but I
me,
gotta,
personally,
yeah,
they've overtaken Criterion at
they're
this point.
amazing. I mean, they are really swinging for the fences and doing a
Yeah.
lot of great work. Um, yeah, sometimes I go back and forth on that, but I gotta be honest, just where I've been for the past 6 months or so, I think if I'm being honest with myself, I think Vinegar Syndrome is my favorite label. Like, I
They're
think
moving up for me, and I was trashing all over
they
them like a year ago.
I mean, I've watched every release that they've put out in the past since May, almost, I think. Um,
Yeah.
and you know what? Like, the films themselves, like, people like to talk trash about them, and some of them are really genuinely awful. Like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Some of them are terrible, but some of them just aren't. Like, some of them are great, genuinely, and some of them are also just they're not amazing, but they're
I'm
good
really
for what they
excited to
are.
watch
And
Blades with
I
Killer
watched that one on
Lawnmowers.
Tubi. I watched that one on Tubi, and I was like, I think I can give that one
Oh
a
no!
pass.
Well, let me go through these real quick. See if it's a Tubi recommendation. So
All
Blades
right.
wasn't one you got. What about the Ice Cream Man?
That didn't have a slip, so I didn't even bother.
That's what I was thinking, but then people said it was a good one and has Clint Howard in, so I got it.
Yeah,
Trauma by Dario Argento.
I bought that one. I haven't watched it yet. I just bought it
Okay.
blind. I didn't even
I
think to
bought it
check it
just
out or
because it had
anything.
Dario's name on it. And
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his. Alien from LA.
That was one I passed on, but I didn't
Okay.
watch any of it. I think I just saw the synopsis and the rating, and I was like, it doesn't seem like my thing.
I feel like I've heard good things about this one. Rush Week.
That's one I don't remember, to be honest. I must have passed on it, but I don't remember that one.
I feel like I've heard good things about it. What about Steel
Hmm.
and Lace?
I bought that one. I haven't seen it
Okay.
yet.
Okay. Okay. So Blade sucks, is what you're
Okay,
saying.
it doesn't suck.
Everything else is okay.
Doesn't suck.
Or you don't know.
To bring it back to our original discussion, I gave it a 5 out of 10, which for me is like, eh.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's pretty middle of the road. Like, it's fun for what it is. Like, it's a killer
But
lawnmower
it
movie.
was worth it because the golf ball's embossed.
Oh,
So
for sure.
I mean, yeah,
For
I
sure.
had to get it. Had to get it.
Maybe you're right. I probably should have gotten it.
You should have got it. It has an
Yeah.
embossed ball. Like you can't beat that. Can't beat that.
The,
Um,
the
what's some of your recommendations for Vinegar Syndrome?
oh
Yeah, I
god,
already told you to bring a few
I have a
over.
stack in front of me.
Go ahead and unleash
Um,
it. Give me your top. Let's do 5. I'm gonna make it hard on you.
5. Oh, okay.
5
Okay. Let's see.
top recommendations for people that are not familiar with Vinegar Syndrome whatsoever. What would you recommend that they
Hmm.
watch? They just
I'll tell
grabbed
you what.
Roadhouse because it was one of their favorite '80s films. They just
Hmm.
grabbed Sidekicks. It was one of their favorite '90s childhood favorites, and they're looking to get into more Vinegar Syndrome. What would you recommend to them?
Hmm. All right. So I'm looking at it. Honestly, the vast majority or the large portion of the stack is partner label stuff because I want to champion that stuff so much. I just think it's so amazing and important. But in terms of the Vinegar Syndrome proper line, I do have 5 releases exactly, and then one. We'll get a little scandalous. One Picorama title is in here too. So
Okay. Well, I mean, the porn
if
sale
you'll
is right around the corner. But by the
let
time
me
this goes
throw in
up,
a
it'll be all there.
bonus,
Go ahead.
a
Go ahead.
bonus naughty pick, we can go for that. So let's see. Um, dropping my shit. Damn.
Don't drop the porn.
Not that one. That's a high value commodity. All right, first one is Freeway.
Oh
Freeway's
yeah, I
fucking
just
amazing.
watched that. Oh my god, that was so good. That transfer
Oh my
blew my
god,
mind. That was
it's
so good. Looks so
here's
good.
an
Loved it.
example. Here's an example of one that was languishing on DVD for the longest time. Not a ton of people saw it, and you know what? It's genuinely amazing. And like,
It's Reese
especially, I mean,
Witherspoon's
like,
best performance. I'll go ahead
exactly.
and
That's
say it.
exactly what
She
I
was
was
great
about
in
to
that
say.
movie.
It is her best performance, and it's not even close. Well, okay, Election is amazing too, but her performance in that is unreal. And like, I mean, if you're a fan of her work, you want to seek this out.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm also just a big fan of Matthew Bright, the writer and director, because he is the co-writer and co-star of The Forbidden Zone, which is a really kind of campy queer classic, fucking insane bonkers movie that I'm a big fan of. Uh, so when I saw that he did this, I didn't even know that he did feature films, and so I was
Yeah.
excited to get into it. And I was just like, it's
He
just
did the
genuinely
sequel too,
great.
correct? Which
I
I have
haven't
not
seen it
seen.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to look at it at some point. I know they just put out Ted Bundy, which is one of his too, but I'm gonna Tubi that one first. I think
Yeah, I feel like I've heard mixed
since
things on that one.
it doesn't come in my subscription, so I got to be
What
a
was that,
little
a
more selective.
VSA title?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um.
Great
Next,
first pick though.
thank you. Next, I want to talk about The Collar with
Okay.
Malcolm McDowell. This is not
Nice.
one that I received in my subscription. It's just one that I found. I think I found this on Depop for a pretty good price. And I was like, I've been interested in Vinegar Syndrome. I want to check this out. Let me grab this. This is an insane film. Like it. How do I even talk about it without ruining it for people who haven't seen it? So it's really just kind of like almost a one location like play type of film where
I love
Malcolm
those type of
McDowell is
movies.
just like this. There's there's no way to describe it without ruining
Is
it, but I
that
will
now
say
what year is that Malcolm McDowell from like his from Clockwork Orange era, or is that a little bit later?
I think this is 90s,
90s. Okay.
1987,
Okay.
so late 80s. But it ends in a way that you can never expect. Like there's nothing you can do to guess how this film ends.
What's
Like,
the basic setup to the movie? What's the
so
premise?
basically
Or is that
this
too much of a spoiler?
no, I could say the premise because I just remembered what it was because I saw it kind of a while ago at this point. But
Oh, is that a VSA too? Is that a slip box?
no, this is just a proper regular release from
Oh,
them. I
okay.
think the
Kind of
slip
looks
is
like
out of print, but yeah, no, it's just a regular one of these guys.
gotcha.
So this character here kind of goes to a new house that she's, I think, renting, or maybe it's a family home, something like that. And Malcolm McDowell's character, his car breaks down outside, and he goes in to ask to use her phone, hence the caller premise. And it just becomes very evident that something isn't right with his character, and his motivations are not as they seem. And it just gets more and more zany, unpredictable, and batshit insane with every single minute that follows that. Uh, this is a really good one, especially
That's
from
great.
like their back catalog that like isn't really talked about all the time now because it didn't just come out. This is one I just found on accident, and it's genuinely great. So I recommend this one.
Nice. Yeah, you got me interested. I'll have to check that out. It's not like
And
not
then
like the usual Vinegar Syndrome trash. Legitimate good movie.
no, it's not. I wouldn't consider it to be sleazy or like trashy at all. Like it's
'Cause
out
that's a lot
there.
of people's perception, and it
Mhm,
definitely was mine when I first got into
mhm.
Vinegar Syndrome. It's like, oh, they just do crap trash movies, and a lot of people will say
And
that.
yeah,
Um,
I mean
but I know
they
there's a
do a
lot of
lot.
legitimately good movies in there
Mhm.
somewhere.
Yeah, they do a lot of sleazy, trashy movies. Like that is kind of their bread and butter, and you're gonna
Works
get
for them.
various results with that kind of thing. Some of it works and some of it doesn't, at least for me. Um,
Hey, that got
but you're
them to this
also,
point. Now they're putting out amazing releases like
mhm,
Roadhouse and Sidekicks and
yeah,
Amityville. It's like I'm excited for what they're going to
yeah.
do in
I
the
mean,
future.
but also you just kind of get these films that the studios don't see any value in because they're either too out there or they're too extreme or they're just kind of forgotten. And so they'll
Yeah,
slip through the cracks, and Vinegar Syndrome will pick them up and find some legitimate, like, fucking bangers, like these ones that I've pulled. The next three are all Hong Kong titles because they've really put a focus on that recently. I think whoever owns the rights to all these Hong Kong films have just kind of opened the floodgates because a lot of labels are putting them out a lot recently.
yeah.
Um, but Vinegar Syndrome specifically is what's kind of gotten me into
Hero
it,
Video is
and
pretty
there
much
are
putting one
some
out every
real
month.
amazing ones. Yeah, for sure.
Damn.
The first one I want to talk about is this one, The Iceman Cometh.
Oh, yeah, I remember
Where's
when
your
that came out.
back? hmm This is See, the thing with Hong Kong films, especially of this era, is that they are at least six different genres kind of blended into one, and the tone will shift at any moment. But this is kind of like it starts off as like a pretty fantastical and beautiful sort of fantasy wuxia film. And then at a certain point, it flips and becomes like a straight up screwball comedy, which I
Really?
wasn't expecting at all, but it's so fucking good. And like it has a lot of really charming kind of social satire, and the performances and the writing are just very good. And then, it all kind of ties together with those fantasy elements. Uh, but this is just so wild. Like I wasn't expecting this at all. I mean, from the cover and the title, I was kind of expecting like a very snowy, wintry kind of fantasy film,
Yeah.
which is like really my kind of thing. And that is what it was for the first bit. And then it just takes a
And then
hard
changes.
turn. It comes together by the end, but this is really fun. I recommend this for fans of martial arts and fans of screwball comedy, which is a bit strange, but yeah.
I'm sure it
Um,
works.
and then this next one uh, is Ringo Lam's Burning Paradise. Uh,
I've not heard of
this
that.
this was a November release, I think, for
Oh,
them.
did it just come
Uh,
out?
Yeah, last November, I think it was in that slate. Uh, yeah, because it was the last one that I watched before I did like my final uh, review video of the year. Um, this is maybe my favorite martial arts film that I've seen, which granted is not that many relative to a lot of people, but this just really blew me away. Um, it's sort of a I mean, it's a wuxia martial arts film, but it's also kind of a gothic horror film, and it's also like a prison film. And I don't think this is technically category 3, but it's definitely approaching that. And there's quite a bit of violence and not a lot of nudity or sex, but there's definitely some skeevy situations that play out in this.
Yeah.
But it is just like the set pieces are just unbelievable, and the choreography for the martial arts is so good, and the aesthetic of it is just so right up my alley. And it just does so many different genres and accomplishes all of them with like really extreme violence that kind of took me by surprise. Um, but yeah, if you're a fan of prison films, I would say this is a really good entryway into the martial arts stuff, because that's what it is for most of the runtime. So this one really, really caught me by surprise.
Yeah, martial arts I definitely need to dive deeper into. I
Mhm.
had that Shaw Scope Volume 1, and it's like sitting up there, and I have to get into that still.
The Crippled Avengers was the one that I watched from that I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is so good.
Yeah.
Like the Five Deadly Venoms, I think was the other one I watched, and I thought that one was pretty good, but not as good as that one. That one really got me. Um, yeah, and then this last one I actually just finished watching last night. This is from the most recent package, so I could throw in a recent title for you all.
Oh, yeah.
This is Made in Hong Kong Volume 1. It includes The Demon's Baby, Erotic Nightmare, and The Deadly Camp. Um, How do I talk about this? 3 very different but sort of equally extreme films that come from like the real grimy Hong Kong underground, I guess. Uh, yeah, this is just the sort of thing where when I watch it, I'm just like, this is why I love Vinegar Syndrome so much. Like, I feel that they are doing film fans, film history, and film preservation like a genuine service by unearthing these, giving them such wonderful restorations, and then putting them out in such great packages. Like, you say this all the time, and you're absolutely correct. Nobody does packaging like Vinegar Syndrome. It's not even
Nobody.
close.
Nobody. I
It's
know
not
people
even
will say
close.
Arrow Video. I would put them way
No,
above Arrow Video at this point.
no,
I
no, it's
would.
not close.
And I love
Like,
those. I love those hard box Arrow Video releases. But as soon as I
yeah.
held a VSU for the first time, or just
Mhm.
their damn slip covers, I'm like, damn, like this is
I mean,
just
look,
nice.
look, 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 look at this thing. You get this beautiful hard box without an ugly J card that I don't know what to do with, right? You get it is embossed and it is glossy right
Yeah.
there, and
I don't
then
even know anything
you
about
get
those movies. I'm like, I want to buy that just because you're showing it off. And it looks
you
so
get
cool.
you get your slipcover in your slipcase with
Now that's
further
important.
embossing,
That is
texture,
important, and that goes the extra mile, and I appreciate that.
and you get reversible cover art. I don't think I have this one. Oh yes, I do. There's different art underneath. So you get 3 different types of artwork in one package,
They have
and
just really tapped into what's important to collectors.
you
They
get
know
this
how to do
beautiful
it.
booklet. I finished
Mm.
reading this last night. Not only are the essays
Holy
excellent,
crap! You
but
read somebody that reads the booklets? Oh my goodness!
I read the booklets when I have
You
the
could.
time because it's time consuming. But especially if I'm going to review something, I want to watch all of the supplements and read the booklet where
Yeah.
applicable. But yeah, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, especially that they kind of put these in the limited editions only as if it's like disposable content when like people really put time and effort and care into these essays, and like there's definitely valuable film history and analysis in these booklets.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, look at that. There's so many images in this that I just want to Xerox and put on a T-shirt. Like,
I love it.
it's
Love it.
just it's a
Now,
beautiful
what genre are those movies? Are they all different? Is it like horror? Is it action? I
I
guess
would.
that's more like the underground Hong Kong filmmaking of its
Mhm.
time. It's not like mainstream. I imagine Hong Kong has a similar like studio type system with a lot of their mainstream
Yeah, I
films, and
was
those are
reading a
more
bit.
kind
Mhm.
of just independent studio films, a little bit more
So I was
grimy.
reading a bit about the Hong Kong film industry in this time. And it was after the transfer of power from Britain to China that these films were made, like right after that. And the Hong Kong film industry was really in a state of disarray, and they were just kind of making everything to try to keep that industry alive and just keep that cultural export going. So there were just, I didn't know this, but Hong Kong is like a third of the size of Rhode Island, and there's like 7 million people
Yeah,
in it, which is
yeah.
insane. But they were pumping out like hundreds of films per year. So, I mean, there's a large pool to draw from there. But these were sort of the nastier ones that, you know, were a little more out there. I would call all three of these horror films just different kinds of horror films.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing a full review of all this stuff on my channel, but I'll give you a brief
So,
kind of overview.
well, you can save it. I'll tell people if you want to hear Celeste's thoughts on this release, subscribe.
That's
Subscribe to the
true.
channel down below.
That's true.
But
That's a good.
you can give
That's
a
a good
brief
teaser.
review, but very
Thank you.
brief. I don't want you to, give everything away.
Look, I'm very generous. I can't help myself. I just start talking and I don't stop. But
I have the
the
same
Demon's
problem.
Baby is, how to describe the Demon's Baby?
Is it like Rosemary's Baby? Just with a
No. Okay, maybe if there were 5 of them, then you would start to get close
I was
to
gonna say with a
that.
demon, but I was like Rosemary's Baby kind of has a demon too.
Yeah. That's one of my all-time favorite films, so I'm not gonna try to compare it to that, but it is really
It is
good.
fun too. Yeah, that movie. I was a first time watch. I think 5 or 6 years ago, and I was like, "Damn,
Mhm.
this movie's good." I loved it.
Yeah, this one has just a lot of really crazy shit in it, honestly. Like, there's I mean, it's fetuses that eat people. Like, what else can I
Oh
say
hell
about it?
yeah!
I will say
Ordering
that
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 right
doesn't kick in
now.
until, like, the,
Fetuses that eat people.
second half. The first half is more of, like, a funny thing. It's
Yeah,
a bit strange, but I think on a rewatch, I'll like it more. That's the thing with Hong Kong films. You've really gotta, like, be on your toes and not place too much expectation on genre because they just don't give a fuck. Like, they'll just do comedy and then horror and then drama and then action. I mean, in the span of
yeah.
20 minutes. Like, you never know what's gonna happen. Um, Erotic Nightmare is about a man who purchases sex dreams from a sort of magical shaman type figure, and it goes badly.
And
I'll
so
just say that.
purchases sex dreams.
Hmm. Yeah, somebody like walks up to him and is like, "Hey, bro, I can give you really nice dreams if you want," and then he just gives it to him, like
You want to
apropos of
purchase these
nothing,
sex
without asking.
dreams?
And then he has one, and he was like, he like has to go find him. He's like, "Hey man, that shit was pretty tight. Can I like get in on that?" And then it goes badly.
It
And
sounds great.
The Deadly Camp was my least favorite of the
You're
three.
making me
But
truly regret not signing up for the subscription service because I
look,
would have
I'm
that.
just saying, I have been having the time of my life getting these packages every month, and just you never know what you're gonna get.
I'm doing it
I have
next time
learned
they offer it. I'm doing it.
I have learned so much. I have experienced so many new pockets of cinema through this. I can't even overstate how great it's been, even compared to my expectations going in. Because I was like, this feels like a stupid thing to do, but I just feel like I got to do it. And now I'm like, no, this is actually like a moral imperative that I must do
That's
is
how I
purchase
was
these
feeling at the
subscriptions.
beginning of this year. I was like, this is stupid, and I know that this is not for me, but I
Mhm,
need to do this. And
mhm.
I feel like I'll never feel quite that way again. So I'm scared that the next time I won't feel the same way, and I won't do it.
Well, I mean,
But I
you
should
already
have locked
spent
myself
like,
in.
look, I'm not going to try to, make you regret anything, but like you already spent $200 on one sale, right? I mean,
I
that got
did.
you like more
I
than a
did.
fifth of the way there already. Anyway, like I think once you watch these films and start to get a feel for the type of thing you can expect, and you start to kind of, I don't know, it really or at least for me, it expanded my appreciation for like lower budget stuff or like because they have a penchant, I think, for finding things that were made in earnest and with a lot of passion that just didn't have the money behind them. But there's something there, like there's a vision and there's an aesthetic there that shines through. Um,
Absolutely.
and that's just for like the like slasher stuff. Like then you get stuff like this, which are like legitimately, I mean, for the time they were legitimately uh important films that like people in the States had to like really dig to find because the stuff that was coming out in the United States was kind of neutered at the time. And so they were looking for that extreme stuff in like Italian cinema and in Asian cinema. And, we're just getting to experience it and like handed to us on like a silver platter with like beautiful restorations and retranslated subtitles and even like intelligent commentaries and video essays and interviews, all this stuff,
Absolutely.
Just real quick, The Deadly Camp is just about some people that vacation on a remote island, and there is a family that lives there that doesn't appreciate that. That's kind of the premise of that one. It's pretty out there. I wasn't 100% stoked on it, but it's not like I regret watching it, and it's certainly worth it for these first two films, which I really, really liked. So
Nice.
All right. And then my bonus recommendation for you all.
Go for it.
For the real ones, the real fucking weirdos.
You're not going to pull up Assholes, are you?
No, but I did buy that. I just haven't watched it yet. Look, I have a bit of a... If something is advertised to me as being especially extreme, or what happened in this instance is somebody in the Vinegar Syndrome fan group hated it so much that he essentially like went on a tear for over a week saying that like nobody should watch it or like it. And so I basically bought it out of spite because I was just like, I mean,
it's an idiotic thing to say.
Who are you to say? Like,
nobody should watch or like something.
Yeah. Anyway, this one is this was the very first pornographic film to be put out on UHD ever. So I actually bought it for the novelty of that. But then I watched it, and it's actually really good. It's called Sex World. I mean, come on, look at that artwork.
Did that come out last year?
I don't know. It came out before I had my subscription. I wasn't really following it. I bought it on their Valentine's Day sale last year, actually. So I'm excited to see what they have this time. I don't buy a lot of these Picorama titles, not because I have anything against it, but just because they're not included in the subscription, and it's hard to find information on them or watch them. So they're very much like blind buys. And, you kind of, it's definitely a mixed bag for that kind of thing. But I hope I could show this. I might not show that one. But, so this is essentially the Westworld premise.
Yeah.
But they really expand on the sexual aspect of that. Like they do that in the TV show and in the film, like the original film from the 70s. Like, I mean, in this instance, I don't think it's a stretch at all to think that a lot of customers of this sort of thing would just instantly fulfill all of their sexual fantasies. And this is a film that kind of really explores that. And it's a film that I think is interesting in its premise, but also justifies the pornographic content such that it actually is integral to the story that it's telling. And like, look, look, our channel is very sex positive. All right. We're all about horny freaks. Okay. So like, if you just want to watch something,
mine is too.
Like, go for it. I won't judge you. But if you want a film in this sort of milieu that is also a legitimate film, Sex World, I think, is actually really great because it really explores the sexual fantasies of these people in a way that I think is thoughtful and interesting. Like, you have people that have no other opportunity to explore like the queer side of themselves or their desires for like polyamory or things like this. And then you have like just shitty people who use this to fulfill like their very terrible fantasies. And I mean, I just think all of that is interesting, but it's also something that you can't really explore if you can't show the sexual side of it, you know? Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that just really changed my mind on this whole thing, you know? So I recommend
how's the 4K transfer? Pretty good transfer?
It's actually really beautiful. Like it looks really great. Yeah.
Vinegar Syndrome just has some of the top-notch 4K releases.
Yeah.
I think.
It's like their restorations, they're never bad, you know.
They're up there with Arrow. And I used to hold Arrow as the standard in 4K, at least for, classic film restorations. Mm-hmm. Criterion's really good as well. But there's just something about like a good Arrow video 4K restoration. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Vinegar Syndrome is just like right up there with them, if not surpassed them. So definitely done some really good work. Let's see. What do I want to get into next? Do you have some movies on your wish list that you would like to see come to Blu-ray or 4K? Some some big ones that just haven't received that treatment yet,
Mhm.
that you
That's an
constantly
interesting
think about,
question.
you can't sleep at night over?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I'm actually going to be guesting on the Unsung Horrors podcast for their segment discussing exactly that. So I actually already have a list in my head. I don't know if I should say it here because I'm going to be saying it there.
Well, when
But
is that? When is that?
we record it in a few weeks.
Oh, okay. Well, don't
I'm
say
just
any
going
of
to say
those. You have
some
to
of them.
think
It's
of
okay.
you have to think other ones off the top of your head. I was gonna say this episode will probably be up. It's probably gonna be up in about 2 or 3 weeks. So
Okay. Interesting. All right. That's good to know. Uh, oh, look at that. I have my list pulled up. I have a list on Letterboxd of like especially obscure films that I've seen that I love. So like if it has under 5,000 views on Letterboxd and I gave it like an 8 or higher, I put it on this list just to
yeah,
kind of shine some light on some like deeper cuts that I really enjoy. Um, yeah, there's
you don't
actually
have to
quite
get
a
them all
few on
away.
here.
You just do
Let me just
one,
give you, yeah, let me
two.
just give you a couple. Um, there's a film called Apparition. It's directed by Isabel Sandoval. Um, she is a, I don't want to mess this up. What nationality? A Filipino. She's a trans filmmaker from the Philippines, and her newest film, I think this is the newest one. No, it's not. But she has a film called Lingua Franca that was really big on Netflix. But this is one of her earliest films, and it kind of explores the uh, life of some nuns that live in, I guess, a nunnery, and it kind of goes into their sexual desires and the inherent guilt and shame that comes with those feelings in that kind of environment. And uh, if you
I
watch
feel like
enough
I've
of my
heard of that
videos,
movie before.
yeah, it's pretty. I watched it on the Criterion channel. It has 870 views on Letterboxd right now, so it's a pretty deep cut. But like, if you watch enough of my videos, you'll know that that is a very personal subject to me. And this really explores the kind of anguish and the guilt and the shame that come with those feelings in a way that is really thoughtful and powerful. And I really loved it. I would love to see that get a Blu-ray release at some point. Um, and then there's another film called Art and Craft, which is a documentary about a man who recreates paintings and then sells them as the originals and like doesn't get caught doing it because he's so good at it. And he's just like the strangest character. He's such a memorable person. Like he just watches TCM all day. And so he just kind of quotes classic films in like the most awkward delivery and it just confuses people all the time.
How old
It's
is
just like
this
this
movie?
really came out in 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
Did it get any physical release, or was it just streaming?
So Oscilloscope has it out on DVD, but they haven't upgraded it yet. And I would really love for them to do that because,
Yeah.
you know, I hate to admit it, but I'm just a snob at this point. I don't do DVD. I don't fuck with DVD. Like, but the quality just isn't good. It just isn't.
It's
I'm
rough.
sorry.
If
It's
I
like,
find a movie that I think
mm,
I might want to watch at some point and it doesn't have a Blu-ray and I see it at Goodwill for $1, I'm not going to pay more than $1 for a DVD, but I'll get a DVD. But it is hard when you put them in. And I tried to watch a DVD. I watched Stand By Me on DVD last year for the first time, and that was not a
it's
good way to
rough.
watch that movie for the first
It's
time.
rough.
Probably it didn't look the
Yeah.
best. I love the movie, but it did not
Mhm.
look the best. And I was like, I don't know if I can mess with DVD anymore either at this point. But I guess I will if I
Uh,
have to.
I'll buy like
I
concert
still have
films
Ernest
mostly.
Scared Stupid on DVD. I gotta
Mhm.
watch that every
Yeah.
October.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few like favorites out there that just haven't been like I have the DVD copy of Dead Alive, but like I'll mainly buy concert films on DVD because like those just aren't coming to Blu-ray. It's just not gonna happen. Like you'll maybe
Yeah.
find a shitty YouTube rip of them, but like that's the best you're gonna get, you know? Uh yeah, Art and Craft is a really interesting kind of look into the culture of art collecting and I don't know, the ethics of art itself. It's a very interesting film with a very idiosyncratic central figure that I had a lot of fun watching. So I recommend that one.
Yeah, those are some deep cuts for sure. All I want is the stupids on Blu-ray. That's my main
Well,
wish list
I want
item.
them too, just for you. I want everything to be out on Blu-ray, even the shit I don't care about,
Funny thing
So
is I do actually have the stupids on Blu-ray. Somebody sent me a bunch of bootlegs a couple months ago, and I've got a
I have a
bunch of
few
my
bootlegs.
favorites from my childhood on like Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead and Encino Man. I got both of those on Blu-ray now.
You know what?
Uh,
I'll give you one bonus one real quick. That
Go ahead.
the film Begotten, it's this sort of film that has become popular online because it's just so obscure, or I mean, so abstract and so disturbing and fucked up. Uh, and it's made its way into a few music videos and such things like that. But that is a film that only has an out of print DVD. It is on YouTube for free, and I have a bootleg Blu-ray of it, but they were supposed to be working on an official Blu-ray like years ago, and then it just didn't happen, I guess. So I would love to see that in just great quality because there isn't really a perfect way to watch it right now. Like the one I have is like an upscaled
Yeah,
1080p presentation of it, like an AI upscale, and it looks good, but it's not going to be as good as like a true remaster.
yeah, for sure.
So
There's just so many movies out there that need the
mhm.
treatment.
Yeah,
When you stop to think about how many more movies could they really upgrade, it's like there's so many. Like
so
when you
many.
when you really start to dig into it, so many
Mhm,
that haven't even come to Blu-ray. It's like I want
mhm.
at least. Is this selfish? I want at least every movie that's ever been made to come to Blu-ray. I know I'm not going to get
I
every
don't
movie to
I don't
4K.
think that's selfish. I think that that is a moral imperative.
Yeah, I want every single film that's ever been made on Blu-ray, at
Yeah,
least,
there you go.
and half of them on
I
4K.
agree.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
let's see. We'll get into a couple of closing questions, and I'll get you out of here.
Mhm.
Gee, we've already been going about an hour and a half now, so
Look,
um,
I told you once you get me started, I can't stop. I'm very
it's good
long-winded
stuff.
about this sort of stuff.
Good conversation. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I think
Um,
so too.
why is physical media important to you? Owning movies physically instead of just streaming stuff. And in the age of streaming, especially, you're kind of on the younger side. You grew up when
Mhm,
all the streaming stuff first broke out. How do
mhm.
you adopt this collecting mindset, and why is it still important to you today?
Um, I mean, I think that one, film accessibility, and two, film preservation are the two primary reasons that I think that this is so important. I mean, I think that it's more evident now than ever with HBO Max pulling their own IPs from their services
Yeah,
just to save money. I mean, the disrespect to the creators in that situation and to just art as a concept is so disgusting to me. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I really do think that like these labels that are unearthing this stuff and making sure that it is preserved and available in good quality are doing like holy work or something. Like I really do think it is that important and that special. Um,
yeah,
but I mean, even if we're going to get off our soapbox for a second and stop acting like this is some kind of moral crusade, like if I want to watch a movie, I want to be able to access it. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. And like,
absolutely.
we're not at a point where that is reliable on in a streaming model. Like Spotify's gotten pretty close for music. You can't get everything, but in terms of popular music, you can get almost anything on one platform. So I don't really know how they did that, but they did. But with films, it's just not even close to that. And in fact, it's just becoming more and more disparate as more companies just see where the money is and are just like, well, why would I license this to Netflix when I can just make my own streaming service? And then if I charge $10 for it, everyone will buy it.
Yeah,
And I mean, I understand it. I understand I'm not anti streaming. I think streaming is a good complement to this sort of stuff. But I think that at its core,
it's helped a
you
lot
need
of
to be.
creators, that would have
Mhm,
otherwise never been able to create anything, get
mhm.
opportunities. So I mean, it's at least been good for that.
Yeah, I'm
But
like,
at what cost? Their stuff gets on the streaming service, but
mhm,
then what? gets ripped off in 5 years and everybody forgets about it.
Yeah, or it just gets buried in
Yeah.
like the fucking chasm of Amazon Prime's sort of bottomless pit of unorganized content, and then you have to know it to know about it to even seek it out,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I think
I
that's.
couldn't agree more. Do you ever? I think about this a lot, probably because
Mhm.
I'm weird. But do you ever doubt yourself in your collecting habits? Do you ever think in like 20 years you're gonna look back and be like, man, I was on the wrong side of history. I shouldn't have put so much time and energy and money into this stuff because now everything's just streaming and that's
Mhm.
all anybody's focused on, and they're not even putting out physical discs anymore. But I got all this stuff, and do you ever feel like
Yeah.
what we're doing is pointless, or are you pretty confident most of the time in your collecting and habits?
Well, because of my various mental illnesses, I often think everything that I do is pointless.
Well, yeah, I often think life in general is pointless. So
So those thoughts come naturally. It was just like,
yeah,
that's just Tuesday, it's always like that. But like,
yeah,
to not be so dark about it. I mean, sometimes, yeah, I do think that. Sometimes I'm like, man, I really have sunk like almost all of my money into this shit. Is this like just a fool's errand, you know?
yeah,
Um, and at least in the short term, it certainly isn't. I mean, the amount of like intellectual and emotional gratification I've gotten from it in the past few years is pretty much priceless. Um, it's been the catalyst for like this channel that I've started, which has been maybe the most rewarding thing I've ever done. So there's that.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
I mean,
Same
I mean,
here.
let's think about it. In 20 years, if nobody's making Blu-rays anymore, one, we're either living in paradise because every single film ever made is available in high definition on one service for a reasonable cost. That's scenario one. Or scenario two, we are living in dystopian hell where you can't find anything anymore. And then this collection is going to be all I got, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, no, those are good points. And I, by no means, am trying to be like negative towards collecting in any way.
Mhm,
Obviously, I do this
mhm,
every day. I love this stuff. Collecting. It's just I often doubt myself a lot in life anyway,
I
just
I
like you
don't think that
said.
that's
I
yeah,
think
I
it's
don't
healthy to, not
yeah,
have 100% confidence in everything that you do. You should
I
always be
agree. You
second
should be
guessing yourself
yeah,
and thinking about stuff in different ways.
yeah,
Um,
it's always good to think critically about what you're doing and where you are, but also, like, anytime you're in a subculture or not, operating in a way that is normative, you'll doubt yourself, because
yeah,
all of society is operating in one way, and because of your particularities or because of your passions or because of your beliefs, you're operating in a different way, and that is always going to be inherently against the grain, and people are going to look at you weird. And I think that to doubt yourself is very natural to something like
yeah,
that. I mean, God, I'm such a fucking weirdo. Like, I got so many things like that. Like, people look at me weird for eating vegan or something like that. And I don't really doubt myself on that because it's such a core part of my ethics and stuff like that. But sometimes you'll just sit there and be like, what is the point of this? Like, I care so
on
much
a
about
steak,
this, and
damn it.
no one else does. Like, that's just a random example. I'm not trying to
Yeah,
proselytize. I mean, I am, but not right now. Like, you know, any number of things that you care about, and it can feel fruitless in the face of so many people just not operating on that wavelength. So I don't think that
yeah.
that's a strange thought at all. Is the thought I was arriving at with that.
Yeah, and then it gets harder when we're getting to the point where it's not the norm. Whereas
Mhm,
20 years ago, everybody was collecting DVDs and VHS tapes, and now it's like
mhm,
streaming as such the focus in everybody's mentality. And it's like it just feels like us as a community, as a physical media collecting community, we're just shrinking like more and more
mhm.
every day, and less
Yeah,
people are caring about it. It gets tough, but we're going to try to turn things around. We're going to try to get more people on board with collecting. I think it does. I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to
mhm,
that kind of thinking and mentality with streaming services, just pulling stuff off at random and starting to realize
yeah.
that they can't get everything that they want.
Yeah,
on
I've been seeing
streaming.
some pretty viral threads and stuff from people just being like, "Oh shit, we fucked up. We shouldn't have gotten rid of DVDs and stuff." And on the one hand, I'm like, "Well, we didn't. That's still out there. You can come back, right?" But on the
Yeah.
other, I'm like, "Hey, that's great.
Well,
The wool has been pulled back from your eyes, and you see how important this is."
and a lot of people have this mentality that you're not spending a lot of money on streaming, that it's so expensive to collect versus streaming. And
Yeah,
nowadays there's so many streaming services. There's people that are spending probably $100 at least, maybe more, on all these streaming services.
yeah,
And I know I
mhm.
spend more than $100 a month on movies every month. I have an
Yeah,
audit video every month to prove it. uh, but you don't have to spend that much. You could
exactly.
spend
Yeah.
$50 to $60 a month and buy the movies that you really love and invest your time and energy into that. Maybe only have one or two streaming services,
Mhm.
and just focus on collecting at least the movies that you love. I mean, that's important. You don't have to collect a bunch of, blind buys and stuff you've never seen before, but it's
Yeah.
definitely important to have the stuff in your collection that you love and you're going to want to rewatch in years to come.
Yeah, for sure. I also think about that sometimes where I'm like, I have to keep this in perspective that I am an insane person and most people don't want to be spending hundreds of dollars a month on
Yeah.
movies. But that's because like
Sometimes you just want to look at it
I'm
and
not
be like,
I'm
why not?
I'm
It's
not an
great.
insane person because I buy the movies. I'm an insane person because I buy so many of them and so many of them that I haven't even seen yet, right?
Yeah.
Like for the average person, there is a healthy medium where you can just purchase films that you love and then you have guaranteed access and then you support them and then there's an incentive to keep putting them out and not all this, right?
And I feel like physical media has never been cheaper in a lot of ways. Like
Oh,
there's
for
so
sure.
many
Hmm.
sales all the time. Like you're getting 4Ks for $8,
Hmm.
$10, like on the regular. It's not even Black Friday anymore. That's
Look,
just having
like
those kind of sales.
I mean, back in the day, like a VHS was like $40 and like a
Yeah.
laser disc was over 100, right? I mean, this set, when it goes on sale, you'll be able to get it for like 30, $40. I mean, that's crazy for
Yeah.
like something this good and this high quality that you just straight up couldn't find 20 years ago. Like we're living in good times. We are so
Isn't that
spoiled.
crazy
We're
though?
so fortunate.
In a
Yeah.
world of inflation now, where eggs probably cost 50 cents in the 80s, and now they're like
Mhm.
$5, $6 right now recently. The price of like movies and games and stuff like that, media, really hasn't gone up any. If anything, I feel like it's gone down a little bit
I think it's
in
gone down significantly, and I think that's
recent years.
because it's been devalued, which is pretty sad, but, the people who
Yeah.
care get to reap the benefits of that. So,
Yeah, for now, and then in years to come, hopefully it goes back up in value. But this is kind of feeding into what we've already kind of discussed, but what's your thoughts on the state of physical media today as of right now? Do you think it's pretty healthy? Do you see it ending anytime soon? Like how long do we got with physical
mhm.
media? With boutique labels like Criterion and Vinegar Syndrome, and studios still putting out good 4K releases. Like how much time do we got? Do you feel like it's pretty healthy right now?
I do. I watch interviews a lot with the people who are actually involved in the creation of these discs and run the labels and stuff like that. I think that the guy from Blue Underground said that we've got 5 years tops, and then this whole thing is done. Um, I think
I
that
have
that
heard that
is a
too.
touch pessimistic. Like,
5 years, yeah,
I'm
I don't see it going in
yeah.
5 years.
I mean, look, I know a lot of people are upset about like Best Buy and Target and stuff getting rid of that. I know you're upset about that too. Um, I guess since I'm not the person who goes in every week to shop new releases, and I do all of my shopping online anyway, and when I go in there, I'm like,
I,
I
I
rarely
miss it
ever
so
find
much.
anything I'm interesting in or I'm
I miss
interested
the
in.
thrill of the hunts. I miss
Well,
going into the
yeah.
stores and looking around and browsing. I used to do it
Here's
all
the
the
thing.
time.
I think that can still be attained online to a certain extent. Like I get really
It
excited
can.
browsing deals and stuff,
I've gotten
and
used to it by now, so yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you. But
And I mean, the thrift stores and stuff are a lot of fun too, and those still exist, at least where I'm at. I will say though, I heard recently that Barnes and Noble is going to be getting rid of their entire film section in the store, And if that's
Yeah.
true, that really is deeply depressing to me, because
Yeah.
that is like a holiday for me to get to go in there and just browse all of them.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's like a date that me and my girlfriend have where we like go and pick out our titles and stuff. And it's so much fun. So that's really sad. But, that's really the only one that I really care about in terms of the big box stuff. It is what it is. I mean, that is unfortunate in its own right, but I don't think that that means that this whole enterprise is going away or anything like that. Like, I know that companies like Vinegar Syndrome have reported record profits since the pandemic.
Oh,
It
they're
was kind of
killing
this
it.
unexpected boon for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
And I think it stuck for a lot of people, like me, as one person. And I do think that it is growing. The average person is dropping like flies in terms of their purchasing of this stuff, but the average person isn't buying the sex world anyway.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff
They
is only
need to,
growing.
damn it. We
They
need the
should.
average person buying
They
sex
should.
toys.
This needs to be on the front display of Best Buy. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah. I do feel like with a lot of collectors, they start to feel the weight of this. They feel like this is all on them to keep physical media alive. So, and me and you as
oh
well, like
God, I
we got to
feel
keep
that so
purchasing, we got to
deeply.
keep buying to keep this stuff going and keep these labels
I'm
going.
glad
Like
it's not
I
just
feel it every
me.
month. I was like, I got to buy something from Kino and
I
Criterion
know.
and Vinegar Syndrome. I got to give everybody some love. So
I'm
I
glad it's
definitely
not
feel the
just
weight of
me.
that.
I feel
But
like I don't know, like the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like this is all gonna go away if I don't keep it up.
yeah, absolutely. Um, but yeah, I think 5 years, like you said, is a little pessimistic. I do worry when you start to get to like 10, 20 years, like where's this stuff
Hmm.
gonna be? Because like VHS is how long did they last? 10 years or something like that, maybe 15 years. I don't know when the first
Hmm.
VHS was. I think it was the mid 80s. DVDs are still going. I mean, they're still the top seller. So they've been here for about 25 years now.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
Blu-rays so long. It's like 4Ks. It's to the point where I don't know when that shift is going to happen to like, there would have to be like another format to come at some point. Like it's unheard of to have one format. Like if we believe that 4K is the final format, we're not going to
Which I
get
do.
4Ks forever. It's like
Well,
there's got to be something else. And what is that something else? If it's just streaming, that's extremely depressing. But what
yeah,
comes
that
after
this
4K?
this sort of 20-year timeline kind of brings us back to my last scenario where I mean, either the state of streaming is going to stay the same and there will be a need for these companies to provide the good shit to people who want, to access that stuff and who want it in good quality, who actually care, right? And in that scenario, I don't see anything changing because I think the number of people who genuinely care about film
Yeah.
as an art form is going to remain relatively stable. And if anything, it's only going to increase once they become jaded with all the streaming stuff, or they, you know, develop a passion for film as an art form. Um,
The only
so,
thing
I
that
mean, in
gives
that
me
case,
hope is vinyl. And how long has
mhm,
vinyl been around?
I
Do you,
mean, since
been
the beginning of the recorded medium, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's still going strong.
Hmm.
Probably the strongest
Yeah,
it's
they're
ever
doing good.
been. So I
Hmm.
feel like if 4K Blu-ray is kind of like vinyl for movies, maybe it can
Yeah.
transcend,
And
decades
I
and
don't,
maybe a century. Who knows?
yeah. And I mean, as long as this dynamic keeps up, I don't think we're going to run out of 4Ks. I mean, there's always an endless vault
Well, you have an
of
untapped
films.
source that's pumping out movies daily right now with all
Mhm.
these streaming services. Like think in 20 years,
Yeah.
all these labels or whatever new labels we have by that point could be tapping into like Netflix's old
Hmm.
catalog. Like maybe
Yeah.
Netflix isn't around anymore. And somebody buys up all the licensing rights to Netflix movies. We
Hmm.
could be getting
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
I mean, there's still going to be new stuff coming out, and that will be viable for the format. I don't really see a new format coming, and I also don't see this one dying out anytime soon.
Yeah.
Again, the only situations in which I could see that are as if we're in our worst case scenario where there's not even enough people to support these companies who care, and so they just die off, and we're just kind of in Mad Max world or something, or like no, there's no point
Which
to
is, to
living
be
anymore.
honest, at this
Like,
point, is probably the most likely scenario.
or they become irrelevant because streaming has gotten so good and so accessible. In which case, I mean, the larger projects of film
I've seen some
accessibility
stuff
and
look damn
preservation
good on
win.
streaming.
Yeah, I don't know. I
But the
tried to watch.
quality is not even it's a fraction, honestly,
Mhm.
of why I collect. Like it's maybe 10 to 15%. Like there's so many
Yeah,
other
I would
reasons to collect other
probably
than
put
just
it at
quality.
25. Okay,
Yeah.
so I have a 4K projector,
Oh,
so
I'm big on embossed
quality
golf
is
balls, so that makes up at least 30% for me.
well, there you go.
So
I tried to watch The Power of the Dog when it was announced on Netflix, and it was unwatchable to me. It was so bad. I mean, the compression and the banding was just off the charts. I
yeah,
couldn't
that's how
I
I
couldn't do
watched
it.
it.
I made it 20 minutes in. I couldn't do it. That might just be because of my projector setup. And so I'm working with like 90 inches of screen space, um, which
They
kind of
sure as
makes me
hell bumped
worry.
up the quality when they did Stranger Things. I know that.
Hmm. I don't know. I watched that too, and I thought it looked rough, but
It,
I think I've developed too much of an eye for it, where the average person doesn't care, you know.
yeah,
So that does worry me. Where if people won't even know, like you don't know something's bad if you haven't experienced a good version, you know. And if
yeah.
somebody's being brought up never having seen a Blu-ray, and that's what they think it's supposed to look like, that's a pretty grim state of affairs, I think. I mean, but I do think that the compression and bandwidth problems are getting better. And I could envision a scenario in which you could get a 4K quality stream for a reasonable price. Um, and I think that that's just a win, honestly, because, like you said, that's not the only reason I do this, right? Like, there's all these other reasons. So, uh, yeah,
Keep finding reasons to put little plastic cases on our shelves. Doesn't
you
have
know,
to
at
be
the end of
just
the day,
quality.
it's just fun. You know, there's
I think
always
so
that.
too. I think so too. Well, Celeste, I appreciate you coming on. I think we're gonna wrap things up. You want to let the people know one more time where they can subscribe and follow you and
Yeah,
what you
for
have to
sure.
come on your channel.
Hmm.
Got anything going on soon?
So I'm here on YouTube at Celeste La Cabra. You can just search those words and the channel will pop up. Uh, there will be more film analysis videos coming soon. Um, yeah, I'm not in a great place right now to be buying a lot of Blu-rays, so I'm definitely not going to be doing as many just Blu-ray update videos as usual, but you can expect a Vinegar Syndrome review roundup video every month for the rest of the year. I'm going to be doing a lot more live streams, so there will be that sort of content as well, and you can interact with me there. Um, yeah, if you want to join a community of people who uh, treat film thoughtfully and are passionate about it, I think we've built a really inclusive and supportive community over here. So I would love to have you. Um, there's also Instagram and TikTok and Letterboxd if you want to be a little bit more intimate. And yeah, I think that's the long and short of it, as they say.
There we go. Yes, I would definitely recommend subscribing to Celeste channel down below. Also following you on TikTok as well. You said you started TikTok,
Mhm.
so I'll be sure to put
Yeah.
all your links
Well, thank you.
down below in the description. You definitely have a great channel. I enjoy watching your stuff a lot.
Thank you. I put a lot of time and
I
energy
like the
and
long
effort into
form
it.
stuff. I know
So,
a lot of
yeah.
people have short attention spans. When somebody puts up a 5 minute
Well,
video, somebody puts up a 25-minute video, I'm more likely to watch the longer one. I just
I
like
am too.
the longer form content. That's what I like to
Look,
create, and that's what I like to
yeah.
watch. So
You
I
know, I'm gonna
appreciate
be
it.
doing the TikTok for the people who have the shorter attention spans, which is fine. But you know, on my channel, we're all about like thoughtfulness is like the top value that I place on this. Like I
All you
want,
have to do on TikTok is
you
just
know,
say, "Hey, what's a movie that from the '90s you think's underrated?" And then you'll get like 30,000 views.
I
So
can't do it.
it's
I
just.
can't do that. It's too hard for me.
I literally did that the other day with something. I forget what the question was. And I woke up and I had like 2,000 comments and 30,000. I'm like,
Wow.
what the hell? is going on
You
over
know
here.
what? Maybe
At least.
I just gotta harden my heart and be cynical and be like, "What's a movie from the '90s you like?" And I'll be like, "Hey, check out fucking the Matrix. It's so crazy." And then some people will find the good videos that way. I don't know. Now, you know what? I think there is a way I can meet in the middle and speak about things thoughtfully in under a minute. It's just
Well,
an
once you get
adjustment
enough
in a
followers over there, I think you can go make a video as long as you want. I
I
think at
think
a certain
is it
point you
3
can. I think
minutes, you think?
maybe
Hmm.
3. I think there's 10-minute limits too, but I forget
A
how.
10-minute TikTok video. Wow.
Yeah, I think I've
Crazy
seen some
times.
people go pretty long on there. I'm
Hmm.
like, why don't you just do YouTube for Christ's sake? What's going on? But look, I appreciate everybody watching this World's Biggest Collectors episode 47. Like I said, definitely subscribe to Celeste. The links are down below in the description. Like this video, leave us a comment too. What'd you think of the episode? Let us know in that comment section below, and we will see you guys later.